like you're still talking. That's crazy.
And Incan does it sometimes. And it's not. And I don't want you to. I don't want you to.
Wagwan, everyone. Wagwan.
Galaxy, hold on. I don't want you to try to get the idea. I want you to get a full understanding of what's being stated. So, most of the time, the guys are neutral until the woman comes off the mic and gives her perspective on the subject. Then they come off the mic and agree and find some way to try to rationalize to the side of the woman. Even when the woman's position has absolutely 0.000 reasoning. It makes absolutely
but then you've got like guys like fucking Samoa willing to like try to back up some dumb shit that Fourth says, because dumbass Fourth has no idea what he's saying. He'll say something completely out of the blue, and then Samoa want to agree with it and then like try to back him up. Yeah, same diss on fucking.
That's not what we're gonna do.
Yeah, so I just want to say.
Don't try to discredit my man's intelligence while he's not here. Because you're retarded.
Fourth is right here.
Well, I do want to say just really
Fourth
quickly.
Is right below me.
I'm so proud of you, Nate.
Definitely 2 points below.
While I did dog walk you in Domino's again, at least you tugged on the collar a little bit while I was walking you. Now I see you fighting back with knowledge, and no matter how this game ends, brother, you fight. Good game.
Nathan is not
You can see how asshole Florida is, man. This man is literally trying to like.
No, Florida, I
criticize somebody that's not even in the room to make himself feel better. Like, that's crazy.
Yo, if you gotta send me in order to try to like get Brad out from the trap that he's in, that's fine. We can go that route, but you're gonna need to start making some legitimate.
I'm not trying to rescue Brad. Brad is his own man, bro. He don't need my help. Brad does say some unhinged shit sometimes, bro. But all I'm saying is, you guys is like attacking this guy for no reason.
Can I just say one thing?
I was right.
No. See, that's just a dishonest answer from a dishonest man. And considering you're like talking to another grown man, Eric, I find it really weird that some of the men that call me simps are willing to simp for another grown man. Literally put Brad's taint in their mouth while they sniff his balls and defend him. And say absolutely bullshit nonsense to try to stay consistent when they're just factual.
I would ask that we take
I'd rather simp for a woman any day.
I would ask that we take simp out of the descriptor, because like it doesn't seem to apply with either of the accused. Bring it on. I'm doing that. You did that.
I also want to throw out there, I noticed that Florida used the exact same words as Brad used as an insult against him. He used the word licking tanks and shit like that. That's what Brad said about what he was going to do to, I believe, him or his girlfriend or his mother or something of that sort.
No, it was my father, because he's a fag.
Yeah, okay. Well, you remember that.
Bitch made boy. So we can do
That
this.
was like 10 hours ago.
Yeah, I come up with new content. Like, if you mimicking is like the best form of flattery. I get it. You want to be like me. I'm sorry, your testicles haven't dropped from your vagina. So again, I'm speaking now.
Stop flattering yourself, Brad. You got two fucking daughters that are supporting your ass while you're living off of the government's
I told you.
hospital care, Medicare, fucking housing benefits. You got SNAP. You don't have a fucking job. You've been evicted from a fucking apartment. Just fucking shut up.
A happy ending out of it. You didn't get a happy ending from your dad. I'm sorry.
Off the government, bro.
Why are you always inferring that our parents molested us? Why do you do that, Brad? Why?
Brad, are you asserting that you've not? Wait, Brad, are you asserting that you've not been evicted from an apartment?
Disgusting.
Okay, I'll just let these two. So I'm gonna give two really great options.
Because I've got receipts.
One, the motherfuckers that are upset are the ones that got packed the fuck up for their stupid shit in this room that stated it. Notice they're all the white people. Notice that they're the white obese fuckers that got booted out of every other fucking space that have no credibility, nothing whatsoever.
Come up with some new content, Brad. This is the same dumb shit you've said every single time you and I get into a beef. I've actually got receipts that you've been evicted from an apartment within the last 5 years. So why don't you just shut the fuck up?
I own, you don't have it.
That'll be doxing. You can't
Exactly, on a live.
Oh, would it be doxing or would it be fucking, what do you guys call it, crashing out with facts?
Nah, bro. That's
Now,
not
what is
that.
it?
Wait. How much? Wait. Tell me what was the docs?
No, I said he's on the line because he said he's about.
Oh, okay. So he didn't dox them then.
What's he doxing about?
We were warning
Brad,
that
you know you've been evicted.
So, hey, hold on, Nathan. Wait, hold on, Ray, hold on. Nathan, we were warning you that
wild,
was doxing.
man.
Oh,
No. Okay,
Call it
yeah.
out when you see it, dog.
I didn't hear the docs. That's I came off the line when someone said that's
What's wrong?
I thought
What's
that's what I
wrong?
heard. But
What's wrong? I'm just fighting with him. We're just doing that thing where people crash out on each other and make claims, some of which are not true, others of which just happen to fucking be true.
So you getting raped by your daddy is true. I got it. But you like stalking women and their things is all true.
You got it.
I got you, you're a simp. I got you that you can't get laid. I got it that you can't find a fucking woman. I got it that you're a fucking piece of shit that can't do fucking shit at all. I got it that your fucking cunt that you slid out of has no fucking recognition of it while you sit there and fucking your fat ass.
This is my weapon.
Figure out
My God,
girls can
this
go
is
through.
for fighting. This is for fun.
Whatever. Again, it's too late for you to be that drunk. And
Yet I restrained myself from actually providing the receipts.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about what you provide, dude. You don't have anything on me. I don't fucking care what you're going to show. There's
Don't
nothing
make me
you
pull
can
them
do.
out one fucking day.
Go ahead, do whatever you're going to do. Go ahead, do it.
Don't do it.
You think I fucking care? You think I don't fucking own my shit? You don't know shit all about me. You don't know anything.
You're not owning that eviction. You're not owning that.
Raise up a whole lot of people.
Brad,
that fucking come in your ass.
I turned 50 in July. I will pay you a plane ticket and a hotel, and I will fight you in a gym. And I will get my full fat 50th birthday fight with you.
Brad,
I will
you
pay for you.
Talk bullshit. That's fine. Monica's called you out. You've been caught.
Monica has
With your dick in your hand. It's all good.
No one's done.
You'll jerk off tonight. Just
Doc Accusate goes after KK and says I'm gonna rape her. So I tell him, you know what, Doc? You're too drunk, you're too stupid, and you're too fucking vile. So you know what? Better off ending your life. Great. I don't really fucking care what this fucker does. You're upset by it because you're a fucking pussy. You're born a pussy. You'll always be a pussy. You aren't a man, and that's why you can't have a fucking woman. That's why you can't even find a gay man to be with you. That's fucking weak. You are weak. Now, you want to go and coat Monica's fucking ginormous hole that she mistakenly calls a tit. You're going to sit there and say, now, let me play at her udders and go for it. And
I've never met anybody on this app, but I'm literally I will invite you.
He's a master.
I will put you in a hotel. You want to run your pie hole in real life? Let's run your cocksucker in my face.
Especially when he's just
Let's
talking
run your. Hey, I'm 155 pounds. I'm 5'10".
He gets banged up.
Let's go. Let's go, bro. I will literally buy you
Doc,
my birthday gift.
Your trailer park.
Yeah, Doc, who the fuck is talking to you? Shut up. This is me and Brad right now. Shut up.
Man, suck a dick, you faggot.
Mind your own business. Pick a fight with someone else in like 30 minutes.
Go wear your pink outfit and go try to play golf and suck at it.
Gentlemen, as you can see, the white on white crime is at a high
It's reached a new low.
As we sit and we acknowledge and we
It's reached a new low.
the white boy in his natural habitat, as he goes forth and back and forth and back and forth,
Beating on his chest.
and beating his chest, and how he's going to do this and that. It is an interesting experience. Just sit back and enjoy.
All the while.
That's exactly how we
Flinging
felt
food
about
and not knowing how to
Clubhouse,
use-
like in the black and the black spaces that we were walking into. You have no.
Wow. So you're just gonna put that out?
aspects that you should see a lot of fighting, chest bumping.
These two aren't getting laid. I mean, do you know a single woman that would actually go with fucking Doc? Like, I mean, I can't even imagine a hooker going with him.
Not one that's alive, no.
No, that's
definitely not.
That's why.
And then you got Florida, who's like, again.
It's funny, Nathan actually thinks that Pocket is the reason why you're pissed off with me, Brad. Are you jealous that Pocket was flirting with me? Are you jealous that Pocket was flirting with me? Or is it actually the Melissa thing?
He got smart and realized, like, oh, fuck, I don't want to be around this.
Please stop calling. You've been dishonest.
I've
been doing
She got smart.
Yeah, you know.
The same way you tried to play it with
Dolly,
the same way you try it with Melissa, the same way all of these women go and reject your ass.
Wait, when they were in the room, though, did you call on them as an alibi, Brad? Have you ever once called on any of these fucking women as an alibi? Because if you feel so fucking strong about this, just...
So wait, you're with Pockets right now. You're saying you...
No, I'm not with Pockets right now, Brad.
Thank you. Rejected. One answer. How about Tally when you were sucking up to Tally trying to get so good? Oh, all that.
Tally, have I ever tried to suck up to you?
Did Tally give you any time of day?
Don't get no.
See, this is where people need to
how
start being
about
honest.
any other woman?
Look, he starts calling other people into it,
so
speaking falsities about them too.
Did they ever go with you? No. Rejected.
That's all right.
I'll
speak
for
Tally. I'll simp for Tally.
You got rejected, and you continue to like fucking act like you're some fucking King Kong motherfucker when really
you think you're the
fucking
King Kong
Fido
motherfucker,
from the fucking
dog.
American
You
Tale.
think you're the King
bum.
Kong motherfucker, and then you get called out for talking about bullshit, making up facts.
You got no bullshit. You have nothing.
Just
You have nothing.
outright.
You haven't won a debate. You haven't made
ridiculous arguments and dumb rhetoric sometimes. When you try to act smart, the smarter you try to sound, the dumber you do. So there's that. I don't know, man. There's a lot to say about you. Like I said, you've been evicted, and we know that there's been claims made about you that you say have been made about me, but I don't know one person that you could bring to an... Charlie, have I ever tried to suck up to you?
Don't get no.
This is where... Leave me the fuck alone, and I'll leave you the fuck alone. Complete false about that.
I'm finding you.
You're finding me. You're in my town?
Yep.
What town is that, Brad?
Houston, buddy.
Don't worry about it. You're the King Kong motherfucker, dog. You think you're the King Kong motherfucker, then you get called out for bullshit. Texas is a one-party state, by the way.
I have a question for Nathan when the state just put after knowledge.
That Texas is a one-party consent state. Let me repeat that again. Texas is a one-party.
Listen to mantra. Hold on.
I didn't want to do it. I promise. I put everything on it.
Leave that game shit in the chat.
He joined the game. I didn't want to slap him around, but I had to.
Damn.
It happened.
Wow, brother against brother.
I didn't want to do it. It happened. I said my hands are bloody. My hands are covered in blood with dominoes.
Make it better later.
All that.
Who playing no joke?
So now, what I don't know, Nathan, is how you know how to check your back channel messages on Sunday, but how yesterday and today you didn't. And how also when I'm putting in the Discord, y'all, this is too much. It gets ignored until today.
Because I told them you wrote the Discord. They don't look in the Discord. I'll be honest with you there. They have their notifications turned off.
I
had to tell them.
Every 5 seconds, Monica's complaining about something.
I had to tell them
I
that you
always
wrote the
listen to
Discord.
Monica's
So if
complaints.
they saw it today, that's why, because I said you wrote the Discord. They never have their notifications on.
Can I share my naked photo in Discord?
Oh!
No, thank you. No.
Man with the naked photo.
No, thank you.
No. Cut him the fuck out. Move him down. Kick him out the way I
No, this is no. I gotta get this. I gotta get this.
Do my nigga Jacobins right
Oh, he got moved down. He got moved down.
Don't just say no thank you. Don't just say no thank you.
2 for Spade.
Okay. No, Monaco. We gotta get this thing figured out.
Well, why don't you figure that shit out?
No, I want to hear a whole lecture. I want to hear a whole lecture on how people are being sexually harassed in the room. Let's do that.
Okay,
Let's do what we do to Jacobins. Let's do what we do to Jacobins.
I'm talking. Okay, Han.
Shut up. Go eat some fucking spam.
I kicked him out of the room. I kicked him out of the room. He's sorry.
Oh, shit.
He got kicked.
I'm so sorry.
So he's still sitting there. He's still sitting there. You motherfucking Polynesian, go eat a fucking can of spam and leave me.
Okay, so, Hans, I know that you're not a regular. Okay.
She's not even talking to him. She's talking to Samoa.
She called that nigga a Polynesian ass nigga. He Chick-fil-A with Polynesian.
She was talking about my kids. She was talking about my kids, cuz.
I still fuck with you, Samoa, but you be getting on my nerves.
Nigga, you have been talking all day, though. I'm just saying.
It's a fact. And yelling too. Monaco. Let's play this up.
Samoa, you talk every day, all day, so you can't say nothing.
Oh, don't run away. Don't run away.
I'm getting pretty tired.
Yeah, they were talking shit about you earlier, bro.
Nah. We gotta get this figured out. Why did you have to jump the gun?
I didn't jump the gun.
Yes, you did.
No, this has been a long time coming.
No, it hasn't. You let Brad
1 for Spade.
break up the situation with your children.
It wasn't Brad. I don't know how many times I have to tell you. It was you.
You said just a little while ago. Now you know why I'm here.
Well,
That's
I'm
what you
sick
said
of the
about Brad
trials too. It's a multivariate problem.
Monica,
And I found the solution.
This ain't like it was a you thing. Instead of you address me about your you thing, you put all of it on me. That's unfair. That's abusive.
Because I left because of you. Are you ready to hear why? I've told you twice.
I've been waiting. Tell me.
So after being harassed, after being bullied by bias mods, after being like the most disgusting things, has your dad stopped touching you yet, Monica?
That's Brad.
After hours of that, enduring that, I hear from Nathan, Brad, you and Monica ruined the room.
I told you.
You said I ruined the room? I ruined the room. When I worked for a year and a half, I'm not done. I don't know why you wanted me to talk and then you're going to talk over me.
Because you said this and you didn't address what I said. I responded to this already.
Let her get it out.
Okay, I'll let her get it out again.
Let her get it out.
She already said this though. And I responded to this.
That nigga said again.
Go ahead, Monica. Tell me it again. Tell me how.
Go, Monica.
He's saying that you and Brad ruined the room, upset you.
I'm here for a select few of you. I tolerate the fuck shit because of you. And then you're going to tell me that I ruined the room? I ruined the room?
I responded to it again.
Are you a moron?
Monica,
a fucking idiot?
Monica, did you hear my response?
You felt betrayed, that I was disrespecting you, that your attempts at moderation were failing because I kept interrupting and talking out to Brad.
Listen this. There's already a reputation in this room, in this house, that you are the one person that does not get modded in here. Everyone, for some reason, forgets that, when they're getting abused, that the moderation is unfair, but they forget that when the moderation is on their side, people don't think that they're getting unfairly moderated, because people say this numerous of times. Monica always get away with everything. Have you ever heard that the killers of Monica? That Nathan allows Monica to get away with everything. Have you ever heard that before?
Because you don't make me a moderator.
Be honest, Monica.
Don't make me a moderator.
No, that's not what I asked you. Have you heard that people say that Nathan allows Monica to get away with everything?
Can we restart the spades game? Florida got tossed out.
You see that, Monica? Yeah, you know what it is? It's a new dude out there, right? Who is it?
FYI, me and Nathan is the motherfucking spades dream team. None of y'all
Monica, you gotta be honest, Monica. You're not being honest.
There's someone else. It can't be this, Monica. There's someone else out there. Who else you found? Let me go, Dan.
Tell him, Monica. Tell him the truth. Tell him who you found.
Tell him what, Nate. What?
Tell him the truth. Tell him who you found.
Tell him who his replacement is.
What do you?
Tell him. Tell him the truth. Tell him the truth.
That's what happened, man. You found someone better? That's what it is? You already moved on, Monica?
No. I resent the unequal application of the rules.
Monica, people say that I'm unfair when Oh, Monica, you missing that part. Why are you missing that? That's one of the most key things. Everyone says it, Monica. How could you have it both ways? You got me as a moderator, and you don't have me as a moderator? That's a contradiction. You can't say the bonds are unfair when I'm always on your side.
But you're not. You allow people, and it's not just me. You allow people
Monica,
to be abusing
when Charlie and Eric was going after you just now, who's the only person who stuck up for you?
Nathan.
You see that? They always forget the hand that feeds them. Sorry, bro.
When I'm back channeling you and I'm telling you, hey, you're not applying the rules to Brad.
You didn't respond to me on Discord.
Yesterday, when Brad was harassing me and it was not consensual banging, nobody moved him down. In fact, I kept on
trying to moderate
and grabbing her popcorn. No, it didn't happen.
Pay attention to Monica. This is why you don't be bidding right.
No, Monica, listen to me.
I'm playing against the computer. I'm playing with the computer.
Monica, listen to me.
I opened the other table.
Yesterday when you...
Who else over there?
Brad was yelling at you. I was trying to moderate, Monica. You kept... You know what pissed me off the most?
I'll play with Nathan, punk ass.
This is what you did. You said this. Brad, if you keep this up, you're going to make me get a mod. And I was like, hold up.
That's what happens when Brad's really abusive
No, Monica.
Now he's sorry for me, and he gives me the
No.
I noticed
it's happened a dozen times.
To be fair, I noticed this. When you do this, it'll actually be happening, right? Like, say Tally starts mod abusing. Sorry, Tally. Tally will start mod abusing you, and you'll complain, and you automatically get a mod. It's almost like it's been a decided thing that if you like cry,
that happens to Brad too.
That if you cry, when that you're getting mod abused, and like I said, it is actually happening sometimes, right? So
it's happening all the time, she will.
Yes, Monica, but you will automatically get a mod when you say that you're being mod abused, and it'll actually be happening a lot of the times, right?
All of the time. I don't start these wars.
Monica,
let us
I can't cry. I cannot. And many people in this room can't just start being like, "Oh, I'm getting my." Okay, Matt was mod abusing the other day, and he was threatening to kick me out of the room for not doing nothing. I couldn't be like, Nate, Matt's threatening to mod abuse me. Can you please moderate me? Can I give him a badge? I don't get that privilege, Monica. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you know how we solved this?
Brad gets that privilege too.
Don't give me the badge.
Stupid, which I'm leaning more that way, or you're a hypocrite. So which one is it?
Neither.
It's impossible. How can you say it? You just said.
Meaning collapsed lungs, broke his back.
That's terrible.
Yeah, bro. Like to this day, I mean, he moved to Vegas, so I mean, like prescription basically. They were like, you need to be low humidity.
That was anything close to the total, you're not going to be able to do anything like that without doing a huge underestimate. So, like...
So, guys, here's my conceptual analysis of a genocide. And this is like a bit out of my ass, but this is just last time someone asked me to do a conceptual analysis of it.
Was that thought complete, though? From Ethan? What? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but was that thought complete, Ethan? Because it seemed like you just paused, or was that a full stop?
Oh, yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Alright, go on.
Alright, so here's things that I consider as like relevant to whether it's genocide or not. So one is, of course, the proportion killed of civilians to militaries. That's why I mentioned that number. But then I also care about the total amount of people killed. I also care a lot about whether military targets were aimed at, as in they were like trying to kill military targets. I care about if one party surrendered, what would happen. Like, so that counterfactual matters to me. Like the Jews couldn't have surrendered to the Nazis. The Rwandans the Tutsis couldn't have surrendered to the Hutus. Okay. Then I also care about the justification of the conflict, as in like why there's a conflict at all, and I also care about the mens rea, as in like what are the intentions of the people? Do they like want to? So like these are the things that are relevant to me, and I don't know how to weight them all, but they are all like things that I consider. I think the two things I care the most about are number of people killed, proportion of military to civilians, and then also the like mens rea thing. I think those are like the three things that I care most about.
I don't think as much about number of people killed or the ratio. Because I mean, I feel like I could easily have a genocide.
Hey man, so when y'all gonna stop this charade?
Welcome back to another episode of Low IQ Dumb People talking about nothing, wasting all their fucking time in the chillest and house. It ain't a philosophy.
We enjoyed the
Because he's got $1 million account.
Why are you trying to take the toy away from us?
What are we gonna play with?
The weight of carrying Monica around is like always my fault too.
Nobody told you.
I'm beating up. I get kicked around by everyone. Everyone. Old Nation, you a C word. Old Nation, you this. You always caping. Blah, blah, blah. You know what this girl said? I don't even... What's that? That black girl who used to come into the room? Who used to always talk about white people? No, the one who... Oh, even Adrian. Me and Adrian went back and forth, too. Because I just don't get it, Nathan. Why you...
Nigga, you running your suck muscles, but you can't play spades? Yo,
No, Monica, you come up here, bro. You come up here, Monica. You don't do that. You know what? Let me go kick this one.
Yeah, man. You ain't saying much, bro. But I want to say some more, bro. When you weren't here, it was talking mad shit about you, bro. I tried to defend you.
What?
Context of a highly effective military campaign.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, that's true, but I will say that like it's some evidence because like if you're mostly killing soldiers, then that's probably what you were trying to do. It's probably what you were trying to mostly accomplish. It's like it's evidence for it's like evidence for the mens rea thing.
Right, but I mean, just in this case, like the ways we can infer evidence. I mean, the way we can infer intent is much more direct. But just even using something like what you're talking about there, you know, if we were just looking at the number of hospitals and the number of civilian installations that have been leveled, where it seems like they're basically just being systematically targeted for bombing all the critical infrastructure in Gaza. So it seems like you're going after civilian assets with the intention of making the place unlivable. Because it's just not plausible that, you know, like 70% of the residential buildings are military assets.
9% of all homes have been destroyed or damaged, but Did you read the Lavender? Did you read the 972 article on the Lavender?
The one you sent me, Jose?
Yeah. The AI targeting machine.
I think what I did was I had ChatGPT summarize it, and then I had
it's not that long.
The basic idea with that.
I had to like steal many arguments for and against it. Is I think what I did.
I don't think Sam reads anything directly. I think he just PDF uploads to ChatGPT these days. But the lavender thing. Ouch.
The fire home.
Yeah.
Personally,
change your batteries.
Well,
he was just about to cook.
that the level of
just about he was cooking. That's why. Yeah, that's the fact.
I think Sam just only reads things on ChatGPT. I don't think he ever reads things directly. Actually.
Yeah, can you just like get the voice box for ChatGPT and we'll just talk straight to Chat?
Yeah, that might be good. Can we talk to ChatGPT advanced voice mode instead? But
you guys realize that I use it strategically? It's like, oh, we have like an empirical thing.
No, I know. He sent you like a short news article, and you had to feed it to ChatGPT and open the
Sam, if you have to mute these people, move down.
But wait, is the lavender situation is like the AI targeting system with like the 10% false positive rate or whatever?
Yeah, and then but they were like attributing absolutely insane kind of collateral limits. So it was like almost like close to like 20.
Yeah, religious-minded people, this card refer practical advice.
I just want to say, Sam, just because I like whether or not you completely corroborate, or not necessarily corroborate, sorry, I should say, but it offers evidence to support the account of genocide that Ethan offered. So if you grant that, then that definitely is evidence in support of it being a genocide, Sam.
Well, I mean, it makes perfect sense if you're going through and you're just looking at what the Israeli policy has been historically, or just anytime you have like some of these more like demographic genocides, or just like if your policy, like just to quote, the former Israeli prime minister, if the policy is maximum Jews, minimum Arabs, then it makes sense.
So I think there's a question of I think what's going on in Gaza isn't good, as in they are punishing them collectively for October 7th, and there's a lot of ethnic hatred that's being just there's a lot of indifference and fuck these people and we're gonna just wreak havoc. But I don't think that the goal of the main decision makers is let's kill as many as we can, because our goal is to just destroy them and to make just kill as many as possible. I think that's just not what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there.
Yeah, but destroying the infrastructure, right? That is wiping Gaza clean.
Well, no, I think there's two different things. Where first is collective punishment plus mass killing of members of an ethnic group. If you believe those two things in tandem, I think that would be sufficient for me to call it a genocide. Where if you're collectively punishing them because they're members of this ethnic group, and then you're basically killing large numbers of them, it doesn't matter if you have intent to eradicate. Under the Genocide Convention, it's in whole or in part. And I think that issue, that issue of just if you're killing large numbers of the members of the ethnic group, even if you know that you have to operate within certain constraints. Obviously Israel knows that if it kills, 2 million Arabs, that's a completely different thing from a U.S. backlash, international community backlash perspective.
Right.
So it has to operate within certain reasonable constraints.
So I'll say part of it is an aesthetic thing where I want genocide to be this thing that when it happens, the whole world uses military might.
It's the Holocaust.
So that's part of why and I also I feel this way generally. I think terms like rape, anti-Semitism, racism should be limited to the more extreme cases, so that way we can actually focus our attention on really stopping the actual really bad ones.
Okay, well sure. So maybe we can use the informal term genocide that way. But what about the crime of genocide under international law, the genocide? Do you think they're guilty of
I think it counts under that, but I don't think that term is a conceptual analysis of the concepts we care about.
I think philosophers should basically supersede the jurists in being able to determine what necessarily should be what crime should be prevented on.
No, but I do. I agree with him there, which is the crime of genocide under international law doesn't perfectly track our intuitions about genocide.
That's true.
Yeah, but presumably it contributes somewhat to the concept we have of genocide, given that it's the thing,
Well, it totally justifies. It makes it to where a person is completely justified in saying Israel is committing genocide, right? There's a clear sense in which that's true if they're guilty of the crime of genocide under international law.
No, but
just like if I go and say someone is trespassing, If you're guilty of the crime of trespassing, that's enough to justify my claim.
No, I agree, but my point was something like, just like, what informs the characterization of like the Rwanda, like, you know, the horrors that befell the Tutsis in Rwanda. Like, consider virginity and innocence to be lost forever. The convention on the, you know, punishment.
Well, and it's in part that the Jews are not perpetrators.
That helps. One thing that very much matters to me is that I don't want the war in Japan in World War II to be called a genocide, because I think that war had huge amounts of indifference to the suffering of Japanese civilians. I think insane amounts of Japanese civilians were killed. We literally nuked cities full of civilians. And yeah, like, that's got to be a genocide, right? So, like, there's a sense in which, like, it's very analogous where Pearl Harbor and October 7th are, like, about as equivalently bad as each other, or, like, it's in the same ballpark. I wouldn't say that. It's an attack on a military base, and we were blockading them. Then America decided to go and just kill, I think, in the millions of Japanese people, many of them civilians, in order to topple a government that we saw as being, like, evil. Like, we saw the sort of Japanese imperial government as evil. Yeah, in order to give it a new government, because we thought that, like, having a, you know, more, like, Western-friendly Japanese government was, like, a legitimate political... Hey, make sense? I don't know how you feel about in other rooms, but in my rooms, just no interruptions is how it works. Okay, so, and then we decided, hey, we want to change the government of Imperial Japan because we think it's evil. And then we did that, and then we did change the government and made them more peaceful towards the West. So, like, I think that that's what Israel's trying to do a similar thing there. And I think that we should think about the cases similarly. If we want to call this a genocide, then we should call the war in Japan a genocide. But then I don't think most people would say that war was like horrible genocide. Also, don't forget, we straight up, America had internment camps. We didn't trust the Japanese Americans. Yeah.
Do you think would it be too unaesthetic to refer to that as a Japanese Holocaust?
I think that's pretty accurate, maybe. Calling what we did in World War II a genocide is just, like, kind of ridiculous given how evil, like, Japan was and what they wanted to do and, like, what they were doing to China. Right. And, like, they were, like, and you see, like, Unit 731 or whatever the fuck it was called, I forget what the actual numbers, and, like, they were, like, an actually evil empire with evil intents. Now, I think Hamas is an evil government with evil intents, though they are less powerful than Japan. But I think a similar case can be made for, like, the evilness of their aspiration. Yeah, and the Amalekites were evil. Okay, when I look at, like, Gaza and, like, try to be sympathetic to it, I look a lot at, like, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, right? It was a similar kind of a response, with full-on military and, like, tanks shelling the fucking place. You know, like, we can look at it as the evil empire of Japan, but we should be able to see how it looks a lot like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising as well.
I mean, it's strange, like, this...
So, this goes back to sort of mens rea, and, like, did the people doing the Warsaw Uprising want to kill all Germans? No. Did the Japanese want to fuck up China in a way that was truly appropriate? Yes.
But I think, so, moving away from Japan and hopefully further away from India and Pakistan, which I know is, like, probably on the cards for this discussion, but, like, when you say, it's like, so one of these commission leaders is like, basically, you know, what would be the result of a full surrender from the, by the, alleged victims of the genocide? And whether or not, like, if it were to be the case that, like, whether it were being, like, literally polarized by the potential genocidaires, then, you know, that wouldn't constitute a genocide by your lights, right?
Yeah, so if Hamas surrendered completely, and then Israel kept doing it, I would just have no qualms or whatever about it.
Yeah. I forget the name of the ex-Israeli, I don't know, like, cabinet member or something that referred to it as an open air concentration camp. But, like, if I was to remain faithful to that comparison, do you think it would be fair if the Nazis said, hey, listen, we're going to stop exterminating Jewish people, right? But we're going to keep you in the camps. We're going to carry on like working for us. We're just going to stop killing us.
And
the reason why they do this again. I mean, how are you saying that the people are gonna like die of like?
Yeah, but let's say they actually.
Are they dying of typhoid at the same rates as they were?
But let's make it more accurate, right? I don't know. Let's say it's like significantly reduced, but it's still like an issue or something, right? Because I don't know. I'm not familiar with the figures. But let's just say actually what they did is they negotiated with some kind of like some council of interned Jewish people, Jewish people, and like they served as the representatives for all Jewish people who are currently the victims of the Holocaust, and basically they attempted to negotiate with them, and what the Nazis proposed was, we'll end this genocide and keep you in the camps, and the Jews rejected it, so it continued, and the story played out how we know it. Okay, do you think now it's no longer a genocide because they could have surrendered and remained in the concentration camps but wouldn't have been killed at the same rate? Do you think it's like fair to say that therefore it's no longer a genocide?
Sorry, he
would talk to the Jews and try to get them to stop with their rejection.
Timothy, how many? If the Jews surrender and stay in the camps, can you just put a number on how many they will get killed by just the living conditions of the camp?
I don't know,
so I get a sense of what you're talking about.
Enough to move
like
the needle.
100K will die, 1 million will die.
Like the birth rates increase.
Like, what do you think the rate was prior? Like,
it diminished by 6 million.
No, I'm saying, what do you think the rate was? So prior to this prior to this ahistorical ceasefire, what do you think the number was? Let's say weekly or monthly or something.
Well,
I have no idea.
Let's say it's reduced by
70%. To generate an estimate.
Let's just say it's reduced by 70%.
Okay. The death rate is reduced by 70%.
Something like that, or even more significantly, 8.
Okay, but you're saying, but then you're saying that it's still shrinking. And we're also gonna need precise quantitative estimates. We're gonna want to break down by category of death. No, the answer it's pretty straightforward. Timothy, if the Germans,
how many of them had like fashioned weapons in the soul and therefore were like combatants?
And I also want to hear like detailed personal biographies for each victim. You want to hear about my great grandfather Hugo? Yeah, let's hear about that. And could you cry while you tell the story? Sure. He served for the Germans in World War I. They threw him on the back of a truck. He wasn't able to get out. His family dispersed and ended up in America. Now, in terms of the camps, if the Germans had merely dispossessed all of the Jews, rounded them up, put them into camps, and had not constructed death camps to specifically cull the herd.
I mean, I was just trying to falsify it. To be honest, I was just trying to falsify
Timothy,
single condition.
Timothy, no interruptions. You know my rule.
No, I know, but like rather than like making more elaborate the analogy, I just like, can you?
I'm being straightforward and.
No, I know what you're doing. I'm saying I asked Sam a question initially.
All right, I'll answer your question.
You're asking me like another hypothetical, and I'm happy.
I will answer your question. If they surrendered and the camps and the amount of people that died in the camps was like 80 to 100K or something like that, I would not call that a genocide. If it got to like 500,000 to 1 million, I would then start calling it a genocide. And yeah, that's around my intuition.
Well, you understand the scenario. The scenario is whatever you consider. There is an accurate history leading up to some arbitrary juncture. Mid Holocaust, and at that point, the Germans allowed the Jews to assemble a council to represent themselves. And what the Germans are proposing is that the genocide will stop. So we agree it's a genocide up until this point. The genocide will stop, but you will remain in these camps.
I won't be there for you. My toes turned out
I'm trying to make a point here. Listen,
my toes turned out pretty today. My hubby told me to go get a pedicure, so me and my baby went and got our toes done.
I was just sitting here at 10 o'clock at night, hanging out in my living room. It's nice and quiet, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder what Ashley's toes look like right now.
No, you would think that.
Why did you say it like that? Oh my god.
They did them people.
No, seriously, it passes my mind like 3 times a week. I'm just like, wonder when the last time she got them things deep.
Oh no, it had been like 3 years since I had a pedicure, but he told me, go get your toes done.
Oh,
girl, you know what? Don't do that.
He started finding all those holes sheets. And he was like, bitch,
No, I do them myself. Obviously, I do them myself, but like to actually go somewhere and get a pedicure.
Discolored toenails, kind of brown and green.
No, they're pink. I got them done pink.
Lord, I'm sorry. She-Wolf, Marquise, I want to run it.
Man, I just...
Where's Marquise?
I think I could just say run it back.
Yeah.
Marquise?
Yeah.
He's not in here.
I'm sorry.
That's a dog whistle for I have black friends. That's what she's doing.
Still there. Don't
know
come for
if he
me.
comes in, I'll jump
He's already been fighting everybody else.
Couldn't if I tried.
If somebody jumps in, Monica, I'll come in. But you gotta...
She's been whooping white niggas' asses all day long. You want to be next? Still going?
Lady, you have time to play?
You know, I don't kink shame, but that's not really my style, so hard to.
What up, Chris?
Stilgar, you may be black from the waist down, but you're stupid from the waist up, and I'm sick of you too.
Thank you, Monica. I love you too.
No, you don't. You don't care about me at all. Just be honest. It's fine. You don't have to. It's no big deal.
The idea that you're telling me to be honest is hilarious.
I'm extremely honest. I don't know what you think I've lied to you.
No, wasn't challenging your honesty. Pump the brakes. Calm yourself.
Yeah.
I was finding it hilarious that you think that I could do anything other than my genuine opinion.
All right, well, that's fair.
Do you think I'm guarded about my feelings? Do you think
No,
I'm just
Stilgar, are you sure you and your wife want to move to Germany? It's looking bleak over there.
I think you actually cry after you work.
Is that doxing?
Wait, is that weird? You're not supposed to cry after you
Oh my God, don't get Nathan started, please.
Has anybody ever watched?
What if it's just one single dignified tear?
I think he does.
Why would you have the glory tear?
Because you're a fucking pussy. If you weren't a pussy, you'll always be a pussy.
Shameless,
You
the
are
shameless.
What's he talking about? We won't be
Oh my God, please, just let me get it out, please.
I'm not, no, I haven't, I'm sorry.
It's relevant to his joke about the tear.
Okay,
there is a part in like season 3, the daughter gets married to this nymphomaniac dude, and he always makes love to her to that fucking baby, my something, my soul, and he orgasms right at that part, and then he starts crying and dripping tears on her face, and like he's pregnant at some point. She's like, just get the fuck out! And she throws him out, and he has to sleep in a kiddie pool.
That's awesome.
Was wondering if you.
I haven't, but I will watch it actually because I'm a bit of a Jeremy Allen White fan. So I don't think Seal makes a song that's not fucking music. So you know.
I actually enjoyed Shameless. Very
I was watching one of those.
I loved it.
I was watching one of those court programs like Divorce Court, and there was this woman there complaining that her husband only had sex to church music.
Oh my God.
And he said,
That's probably TMI.
and then so the judge asked, "Is this true?" And he says, "Well, you know, when you having sex, don't you want to be closer to God?"
I give myself away.
and then he.
What about Take Me to the King?
I was just about to say that.
How about that?
The sacrilege. You're all heathens. Control your.
I've been saying that.
They said Mariah Carey. They say Mariah Carey only has sex to her own songs.
Well, you know, the thing about Mariah Carey, she actually has somebody on salary to put her shoes on for her. You're laughing and I'm serious. What did y'all think about her reaction to like Money Long? You think they over exaggerated it, or she was really there? Like, oh, like are they serious? You know? Did y'all see that?
In terms of the first point about like tit for tat, I mean, it seems like you're just treating all of the Arabs as if they're this like monolithic, homogenous
group of people. It seems like probably the more relevant place to start the history of this conflict is in, like, 1967. So, like, did Israel launch a war of conquest where they occupied these territories? Is it justifiable for Israel to continue to occupy these territories? Should these peoples that are currently under Israeli occupation, are they entitled to sovereignty? So are they entitled to participate in the political decisions that are being made about them under international law, under natural law, whatever? Like, those seem to be the relevant questions for this particular dispute, is basically the moral and legal status of this occupation.
I don't know enough about the '67 war to, like, disagree or even agree with you. Like, I just.
But set aside that point about whether Israel was, the aggressor in that context, or what their motives were in that conflict. Set that aside. Do you sort of agree that the relevant immediate context to this conflict is, like, what is the moral status of Israel continuing to deprive these people of sovereignty?
Yeah, I think all of this has to be made in the context of the reason why Israel is acting the way it's acting is because of the genocidal intentions of its neighbors. And, like, that colors the entire discourse. And for me, that is, like, one of the things that I think about the most is, like, if the Arab nations around them or the Palestinians had their druthers, what would they do with the Jews in the region? And maybe that explains some of the Israeli behavior.
Can you bring up? You have these assumptions about what they would do.
Yeah.
What I know about what that Jews would do is, like, humiliate and murder the Arabs while depriving them of sovereignty. That's what they would do if they had power and if the Arabs continued to assent to their rule. And that's pretty consistently happened. And basically there's an element where it's like the thing that's so fake here that also depends on historical context. The thing that's fake here is that, like, Israel has manufactured the pretext for the actions that they're taking. To the extent that there is Palestinian radicalism, that's by Israeli design. They've engineered it. And so that's what they want. And so that's the thing where it's like, yeah, okay, sure, let's condemn Hamas. But whenever we do so, let's acknowledge that Israel is responsible for Hamas. To the extent that Hamas is radical and intransigent, it's because Israel has specifically orchestrated a set of circumstances such that this is so.
I don't think it's particularly plausible that, like, I think that in 47 there was an argument that the nations around them were genocidal. I think there's an argument to be had there, and that this is before any of the Israeli aggression. And so I think this is, like, a thing that you can't use to explain these sort of genocidal attitudes of their neighbors. Now, right now, it's, I think, undeniable that the Palestinians have more genocidal intent than the Israelis, just because they're younger, they're oppressed, they're hopeless, they're anti-Semitic, they have Islamic fundamentalism. Like, there's no question that they're more likely to want to commit the act of killing as many Jews as possible than the Israelis, whereas the Israelis seem to either want to occupy them and have them, like, just sort of like live in squalor, or, like, have them be in peace. Like, that's what the Israelis seem to want.
If we looked at just the genocidal rhetoric from Israelis, like, even the top people within the Israeli government, not to mention just the Jewish extremists throughout the Israeli population, they say things that are just as bad as the Muslim statements that you take that Muslims have genocidal intent. So, like, the extreme bellicose, hyperbolic war language that the Israeli right wing uses, that completely parallels the language that the Muslims use. But you're just sort of dismissive of it when it's Jews that say it, but you're inclined to take it literally when Muslims say it. Like, let's just take in 48. What specific evidence do you have for genocidal intent from the Arab governments towards the Jews?
There's a quote.
Sorry, I don't mean to undermine the discussion, but we had this talk before, and you agreed that aggregating genocidal rhetoric isn't enough to qualify, because if that were the case, then you'd have to concede that Israel, by the same token, are committing a genocide, just based on inferences from the rhetoric.
Look, guys, Abdul Rahman Azam was the Secretary General of the Arab League from 45 to 2, and he declared in 47 that the war to take place would lead to a war of extermination and momentous massacre, which would be spoken like the Mongolian massacres and the Crusades. So, like, that seems to be clear genocidal intent. Now, what percentage of Arabs felt that way? I don't know. I've not actually looked into the actual percentage of the Arab leaders that had this.
Yeah, I know that.
So
that one is saying, in the onset of conflict, it's basically going to be a war that's going to result in elimination of one of these nations and mass killing. So is that your standard for genocidal rhetoric? And do you think that rhetoric is? Do you think it's plausible that rhetoric is more prevalent among Arabs than Jews?
Okay, are we talking about in 47 or are we talking about now?
We can talk about it basically any period in history, so we can talk about 47.
I think in 47 it was more common amongst Arabs, and I think both is true for both. It's more common amongst Arabs. That'd be my.
Sam, can you please bring up Chris, brother?
But you,
because we're in the situation where basically, I don't think you could find a single example of a war throughout history where you couldn't find high-level people in basically any party to the conflict that said statements that sounded genocidal towards their enemies.
I mean, he granted that, maybe your opinion has changed.
But I mean, let's just have the conversation now rather than litigating your past conversation.
Thank you, Sam.
So, Ethan,
But I think it is just interesting, which is just like it seems like you just don't like Arabs very much. You're sort of biased towards them. You have like a favorability bias towards Jews, and so you kind of think of Arabs as like crazy murder people, and Jews as people who are like, okay, maybe they're getting animated, but they wouldn't really kill all the Arabs. These Jews.
Well, I think nowadays the case for asymmetry and desire for genocide is clear from the reasons I said before about the Jews have had a chance to genocide them for a while and haven't, and then B, everything I said about them needing
$dollars for something like dental wax.
There's a trick for that. So with the wax, if it's not staying on, take how much you want to put on there and rub it around in your hands and your fingers till it gets real warm, and then layer it, put it on there and sip something cold real fast. And it'll mold onto there, and it won't come off until you peel it off. That was the trick I taught myself.
Oh, we were in there every day for the spacer.
You buy so much.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, it's Bussy. I heard Zach blocked you today, and Abby too. Yeah, he's done talking to you. You guys are out of his life for good. Hooray for you!
Ryan, can you remove him? Cry about your problems.
Hooray for you!
No, Ryan, can you remove him, please?
He blocks me.
Oh, Bussy's upset. Bussy's a little bit psychotic sometimes. He can be kind of crazy. He's a little crazy sometimes. Do what your Bussy tells you to do, Dr. Ryan. Do it.
Are you sure? Okay.
Do it. Do it.
Let's go.
Oh, he did it. He did it. He did it. Can't believe
כי ישראל גוי אחד בארץ אשר חלכו אלוהים לפי חוד לא לעם ושלום לא שם ולשוד לך. That's actually לכם.
Because a lot of the conflict was the paramilitaries and stuff. Yeah, and even though they did have
the Catholics had the terrorists, the IRA was formed to unite the whole damn thing. But whatever.
It would be equivalent to
I want this Ireland, by the way.
I want to continue my debate with Ethan, and you can talk about this debate after.
Well, no. I was bringing this up for a point. What I'm trying to say is, in England and Ireland, we can see that gating people off and telling them that, like, oh, because of your religious affiliation, we know what you're politically affiliated with, we can see in our English language that's not a genocide. We get it. It's a political fight and, like, you know, dirty fascistic tricks. Fine, whatever. Not a genocide. We can look at America and say, okay, genocidal in some places. Trail of Tears, slavery, fine. I think that, like, in my opinion, the whole Israel-Palestine thing, neither of these, like, liars are engaged in a fucking genocide. It's bullshit. It's not a genocide. It's stupid politics. This guy wants that guy wants this. Neither one of them would wipe out the other. I call their bluff.
I totally disagree.
They're both talking bullshit. It's just war. Meaning the confusion in English is that it's not as clear to us that this is a Northern Ireland situation, which it is. And they're just talking shit in their stupid religious dialogue. That's all.
I just make one
genocidal.
One sentence. I mean, if you're conceding that it's like kind of neatly analogous, then obviously you'd be conceding that like Israel is in fact a colonial project, which I guess like most pro-Palestinians would agree with. But yeah, that's it.
Jews, Mizan, I don't know why you're saying this.
Symmetry breaker.
Jews have not had the luxury.
Israel promised to Jews.
When someone says they want to kill the Jews have not had the luxury to just not believe them. So I don't know why you're saying like, oh, they're just talking shit. Like,
yeah.
You could have said, oh, Hitler was just talking shit. Oh, like Torquemada was just talking shit. Like, no, these are like actual.
Yeah, that's right. There were two institutions that really pulled it off: the Catholics and the Germans.
There's more than just those, you know.
Okay, and historically, Muslims did not.
Do you want me to pull up the list of times where Muslims have like killed large numbers of Jews and oppressed them? I can pull that up if you'd like.
Yeah, go and check the numbers versus the Catholics.
I mean, of course, both the proportions and the numbers are.
Why are these Jewish guys pissing everybody off?
By the way, the British also kicked this out. That was another genocide.
What is it that they're doing?
Genocide.
I mean,
you're confusing like genocide with ethnic cleansing, though. If you're talking about like in the 13th
That's
century,
what I'm saying. This is actually political, and this is just a region where they bleed their politics into their religion. So it's very clearly genocidal in all the propaganda. But in the end, these are both like devoutly religious communities that don't want to hurt a fly, except for like the secular people. So I guess worry about them. But then like, I don't really believe either of them. I don't think they would do it. Neither one.
When you see the behavior of like ISIS and the Taliban, why would you say, oh, when religious Muslim fanatics say they want to fuck people up in horrible ways, and then they do it? Like, there's like no evidence to think they're just talking shit. He said, that is just out of your ass, man.
Okay. Let me ask you this: if they were really if you were committed to like the death of all the infidels, do you think that you could accomplish a better organization than Al Qaeda and the Taliban?
Yes.
Oh, they're incompetent. So like, oh wow, I'm less.
Okay, so why are they incompetent? Shitty. Why are they so bad at the thing that they are religiously devoted to?
They're a bunch of backwards retards.
Because the war is a hobby to justify their religious devotion.
Say that to the Yazidis, my guy. Oh, he's just a hobby. They're just like, it's just a hobby of killing the Yazidis.
America's about to blow them up.
I mean, I think the thing we can all agree on is that this region, this Palestine, was best governed under British rule. Suggesting something about, like, Anglo supremacy. And maybe that's just what we should return to. Maybe the Jews should give up Israel. Maybe the Arabs should give up on Palestinian sovereignty. And we should turn this back into an administrative region. Well, obviously now that Britain has been taken over by Muslims, we're going to have to go with, like, America.
But why would we say Britain instead of the Ottomans? The Ottomans held it for longer.
Yeah, but they governed it
first. Back involved.
Well, yeah, but under the Britons, we actually introduced all these roads and railways and ports. And we introduced, like, a stable currency. And we tied it to the British pound.
Way more than the Brits.
No, but you created a totally unstable place.
That's not true. It's stable. They've got an iron dome.
Well, that's not true. 1,000 of your guys got massacred by the barbarians that you cultivated.
Yeah, but look at how our birth rates have increased.
And if you just looked up,
survived last time.
Like, basically, like, if we just looked at trend extrapolation, you guys had a very long time and were there during modern times in terms of the development of the institutions. But, like, you were growing below trend for how well the Brits would do before, like in the 30s, just the Jewish terrorist group started terrorizing the British Mandate. But if we had just stayed with that, like, you guys, it would probably be like Wakanda there, right?
That's not true on, like, any level. Like, there wasn't any growth during the British Mandate. The British Mandate was designed to expire when it did.
No, but there was growth under the British Mandate. Why are you lying?
What?
Why are you lying? There was growth under the British Mandate. Like, basically all the infrastructure and the entire economy, like, all the foundations for that were built during the British Mandate.
No, that's not true.
But that's just a fact. You can just Google it.
Either way.
And that's the sad truth, is that all these places that were ruled by Britain, basically the longer you were ruled by Britain and the greater the share of British white people that were there, the richer your country is post-independence.
Listen,
that doesn't seem true in America.
Listen, like, heaven...
America's a case in point.
Heaven is British politicians, German engineers, and, like, French cooks, and hell is, like, German politicians, English cooks, and French engineers. Like, I don't know. Yeah, the Brits are good people and shit.
No, that's the thing, and that's why it's our unique burden, you know, to govern.
Yeah, man, we have a burden. Well, I don't have the burden.
Right, you don't have the burden. It's your burden to be governed, and the second we let you guys get in charge, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, you said this thing kind of is a joke of, like, why have the Jews, you know, why are people so mad at the Jews? I think, like, the answer to that question is, like, it's not that hard to do. It's just not the same at different time periods. Like, why were the Jews hated in Rome? Because they were, like, the Sicarii were, like, terrorists, and they also, like, didn't worship Caesar, you know? And then after Jesus came and after Christianity became a thing, they were blamed for killing Jesus. And then early Christians hated the Jews because they weren't converting to Christianity in high numbers. And then later, Jews had unpopular jobs, like being moneylenders and shit like that. And that made them very hated. Then, you know, after that, they had wealth because, oh, you're doing white-collar jobs, now you have wealth.
I'm just going to say, people can look for themselves as to just
across
all these different times and places.
Ethan, you gotta let me finish my point, and then you can go. I'm happy to let you go after I finish my point. Then they had wealth. Then they created ideologies like Freud and Marx. They hated for that. Then they still had wealth. And then they had Israel. And these are all, like, different things that annoyed people. I don't think there's this, like, common thing that, like, explains all of anti-Semitism through history. I think that different reasons it was caused by different.
I mean, basically, if you go look at all these different places, the attitudes that the people had where, like, the Jews, every place they ever lived, getting kicked out, basically the complaints that the people had, that they express, there's, like, a lot of motifs in those complaints. And basically, if you look at those, and people just talking about, okay, there seems to be, like, this group is arrogant, and it's ethnocentric, and it looks down upon us, and it seems like they organize with each other, and they basically gravitate towards these sort of, like, positions in finance, right? And in basically as these, like, almost like sort of shadowy political brokers, and people in the media, and people in all of these, like, sort of service, like, these, like, weird intermediate, like, highly intellectual service industries. And they sort of band together and use these sort of gangsterist tactics and do, like, racial conflict with us. And they kind of are, like, impious and stuff like that. Like, there seem to be some pretty common themes in the complaints that groups of people wind up having and the stereotypes they form.
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree with that. Like, when the Jews were hated in Rome, it was nothing to do with this. Jews weren't even in those kinds of jobs then. They were, like, a bunch of, like, backwards fucking, like, whatever, goat herders in Israel. And then the early Jews were hated for killing Jesus, which had nothing to do with this, like, finance shadow government stuff. And then in the early Middle Ages, they had not yet, like, developed the capital to be able to influence governments and stuff like that. They were, like, a bunch of wandering people, like, that had not accrued that much wealth. So, like, it's only late. It's like late anti-Semitism has these tropes. It's definitely not early anti-Semitism that had it.
Well, first of all, I think you're basically just, like, exaggerating the phenomenon of early anti-Semitism. And you're just relying on, like, cartoonish stylized histories that aren't based on the actual history. Where it's like, if you go to these people that are like, oh, we're mad at Jews because they're not converting to Christianity. But if you supposedly have read, you know, On the Jews and Their Lies by Martin Luther, And you see that even the people that wind up expressing that attitude, the way that they come to this hatred, which is contrary to the Christian teaching, right, about how to approach these issues, and it's like contrary to what Paul says in his letters about how to approach these issues, the way that they come to this frustration, the way they articulate why they're upset, basically winds up being on character traits and psychological attributes in the way they conduct themselves. So the fact they're resistant to converting to Christianity or whatever, or even just the mere fact that, like, oh, you're blamed for killing Jesus or anything like that. Now, the whole thing that's like, why were they hated in Rome? Well, I mean, the main reason that Rome got upset with them was because of the Jewish revolt, the Great Jewish Revolt, and the Bar Kokhba revolt. And so that was why you had these really harsh Roman responses to them. And basically, like, that was the whole reason why, like, Hadrian's retaliation against the Jews for, like, massacring the Gentile populations in the region. You know, basically the extremely harsh response to that.
So, like...
Hold on, Ethan. When you said... Just a second, please. I'm in a debate with Ethan, man. Hold on. With Ethan, like, when you read Martin Luther's Jews and Their Lives, it's not about them being, like, a shadowy gangster ethnocism thing. It's saying these Jews are arrogant, they brag about their lineage, they blaspheme against Jesus, they think that Jesus is burning his shit, it's lots of theological critiques of them rather than sort of characterological critiques of them. And
I mean, you just named two character traits. You named arrogance and impiety, which are two of the ones that I mentioned. Yeah. And I mean, that he says more than that, too.
He is not in the main critiquing, like, Jewish political influence and their sort of shadowy, ethnocentric gangster tactics to influence, like, society. It's, like, not...
No, I mean, a huge part of it was his complaints about usury. And that basically, like, the Jewish abuses of usury to basically exploit and impoverish Christian communities. And he talked about just the general threat that their presence had to social and religious stability in a Christian society. And so, I mean, he basically had both, like, these character critiques, which are basically, like, dishonest, arrogant, impious. And he had these, like, sort of, like, social role critiques, which are usury, you know, financial exploitation, you know, undermining social and religious customs.
I'm reminded of something you said earlier, that in a war, you're pretty confident that you would find genocidal intent in the propaganda of either side. So seemingly under your contention that Jewish identification as an enemy dates back to Rome in what you characterize as a justified assault on Israel. It would be then your contention that all of this propaganda that has built up over the years could be laid at the feet of those that specifically wanted to destroy the Jews, such as the Catholics, as you said, under the instruction of Paul.
No, because Paul didn't instruct them to destroy the Jews. He said the opposite. That was my point. And I mean, the whole thing about, like, wartime propaganda...
Follow his instructions on how to deal with these issues.
But my point, the point that I was making is that Paul doesn't say, go and kill the Jews. Paul's thing is, like, it's hard to convert the Jews, but ultimately, like, we gotta keep trying, and God ultimately wants to bring them back into the fold. He's not gonna abandon his chosen people. That's, like, Paul's theology about, like, Christian outreach to the Jews.
Would it be fair to characterize it as an eternal battle?
He said you gotta be careful about interrupting, man. Don't stop cutting Ethan off, man.
But there's a separate issue here, which is I just want to go back to the main point, which is just that, like, just to respond briefly to something that you implied, it's not really wartime propaganda that can explain it, with all these different groups, with all these different independent interactions with the same group, arriving at some of the same conclusions and having the same complaints and stereotypes. Because the wartime propaganda basically comes and it goes, you know, with convenience, you know, like, the attitudes that we have, even towards Germans today, are not as, like the dehumanizing rhetoric and war propaganda that we had during World War I and World War II about them, where they just like are like cannibalizing little kids. Like that doesn't at all still affect our cultural consciousness about Germans. And it's a similar thing where it's like it doesn't affect like for instance all of the vile propaganda that we spewed about the Japanese during World War II. It's completely faded from the consciousness. We now view them as this sort of docile people. So I mean this idea that like the wartime propaganda would just persist through time and accumulate and result in completely unjustified stereotypes being propagated. It doesn't explain like why multiple people are arriving at the same ideas independently over and over again, and it doesn't explain the stability. It doesn't seem to match with other cases either.
Unless it was an eternal battle.
Yeah, so like anti-Semitism scholars will tell you that anti-Semitism is a shapeshifter. And it's whatever is most detestable to a particular society, they blame on the Jews. That's how you can have Jews be the capitalists and the communists at the same time, right? So, and that's how like Deborah Lipstadt talks about it. It's a shapeshifter. What is most detestable is what is blamed on the Jews.
I mean, first, that doesn't answer the question of why. And second, maybe the reason why people associate the Jews with both the communists and the capitalists is that Jews represent an overwhelmingly disproportionate fraction of wealthy capitalist business leaders and Bolshevik leaders in the Soviet Union.
There's an old joke that, if you were in a bunker and then you like want to see if the communists or the capitalists won, you find out if the rich Jews have power, if the old rich Jews have power and the capitalist ones, if the young Jews have power, then the communist ones. But hold on, guys, question. This is totally. We're like getting away from this like important point that like why the Bar Kokhba rebellion happened and why the Romans fucked them up is totally different from why the early Christians were mad at the Jews. It's very different from how the people in the early Middle Ages were mad at the Jews. It was very different from how people in the like 1800s were mad at the Jews, and then now why they're mad at the Jews. They're like obviously different phenomena, and you can say that they have the same tropes, but I'm saying no. This is like just like a complete misunderstanding of history. They weren't the same tropes. They were fucking making very different claims about them.
No, and that's the thing is just anyone can go and read and like see what Hadrian said when he got frustrated with the Jews, see what Martin Luther said when he got frustrated with the Jews, see what Hitler said when he got frustrated with the Jews. Compare those three together from three very different periods in history, right? So we're just talking about classical antiquity and then the Reformation and then basically modern times. And so we have three anti-Semites. And see what their complaints are and see how similar they are and see if Sam's right that they're totally different things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Hitler and Martin Luther are different, but then let's just look at Hadrian right now.
Those would all be informed by Rome.
Wait, can I ask a question? Ethan, you think the complaints are legitimate to justify the anti-Semitism?
Yes, he does.
No, it doesn't justify. It doesn't justify hating an ethnic group. But the fact is that there's some general trait that's prevalent among members of the ethnic group and the culture of the ethnic group that explains the animosity that all the different groups.
Let me ask a different question.
Sounds pretty much bigotry to me.
Okay, well, just stereotypes can be true, and these stereotypes are true. So just dispute the factual matter.
Courtney, are you there? I guess not. Okay. Oh, can you talk?
She was davening Ma'ariv.
That's fair. Courtney?
I think I got a better spot.
I'd like to say something relevant to the topic.
Is it going to be anti-Semitic?
Did you make
Well, okay. I just wanted to interrupt briefly to illustrate how simple it is to characterize the success or failure of the Jews however you want. Under a simple Old Testament review of Jews rising in prominence in the world at large, mostly you would characterize that as a blessing from God. And you would say that that must be an indication that something they're engaged in is good. It's an old, simple rule involving blessings. Now, you ask why Martin Luther, Adolf Hitler, and Hadrian would characterize Jews in a certain light at different times and how they would characterize them. when they were opposing the Jews. You can do that, and I'm pretty sure it'll all be informed by your Roman heritage, surely. However, you might be taking a side before even evaluating. You're following through on, what, Martin Luther from Germany? Hadrian in Latin? Adolf Hitler. These are the people you want to investigate as a perspective for understanding an ethnic group. It just feels to me like you're not following through on whatever faith you claim to have.
What? I mean, that was completely rambling and incoherent. Just the claim that came up was, Sam says that anti-Semitism is for very different reasons across time and place in history. I say, like, I'm calling your bluff, like, no, it's not.
Alright, so Ethan, just as a general question, would you prefer to have a one-on-one debate with me, or would you prefer to have just the room discuss this with you? What's your preference?
I mean, I prefer to talk to you, yeah.
Okay, so that being said, Caleb, I'm gonna have a one-on-one.
I mean, I guess, well, I actually kind of would, before we get into a one-on-one, I guess Deepak did want to get in.
Jacob, go ahead, Deepak.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. It's something like this, right? Like, oh, the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and everybody hates the Jews, but during National Brotherhood Week, it's National Everyone Smile at One Anotherhood Week. Be nice to people who are inferior to you. It's only for a week, so have no fear. Be grateful that it doesn't last all year.
Bravo. Bravo.
Ethan, I know you like to meme about my ChatGPT stuff, but like, it doesn't say that Hadrian has like direct quotes about the Jews, and it says that he like was fighting against Israel during like the Bar Kokhba rebellion and had policies towards the Jews, but I'm not seeing places where like he has quotes about Jews or things he said. So like, is ChatGPT wrong here, or is there like another Roman figure that we can find that you think has like direct quotes about the Jews that we can look?
No, so what we have are stories about Hadrian. We don't have, like, the writings of Hadrian, which are two different things. But here, let me just give you a link.
Sure. Discord, are you sending this to me?
Yeah, I'll just ping it on Discord.
Okay. While he's doing that, I just want to reiterate my general point that the main themes at different times in early Jews and
Alright. Yes. I spent most of my whole life in the church singing first, and then when I got into school, I entered multiple talent shows, got myself involved in musical theater, got myself involved in chorus, took vocal classes, and I still suck, because I can't hit certain notes because maybe that's not my range, but I still take vocal coaching classes, and yeah, still with time, as my coach would say, Mr. David, it would get better with time. You just have to keep, finding what makes you, and know that not every note you be able to carry, but like I said,
the natural human instinct is towards envy, and that people who have more money than you, I've been recently adopting this political view that people mostly derive their political positions based on saying my group deserves status, and people that are more high status than me, they don't deserve it, and they stole it. And then my group, like, if I'm low status, then it's only because the people higher status than me, like, fucked me over. And if I'm high status, then, like, oh yeah, of course you deserve my wealth. Like, this is, like, the main driver of, like, political formation, like, political view formation. So, like, oh, you have these people that are rich, that are not in your in-group, that you're envious of, who separately you blame for killing the savior of the world. Like, it's unsurprising that those people would be hated.
Well, there's a few things there that are interesting. But, I mean, I think the first one is, yeah, we should just get way out on the table, like, what are the themes? You know, and I think basically the major themes, so first, the ones that pertain to character traits are, like, basically, like, arrogance, like, haughtiness, like, impiety, you know, a certain kind of ethnocentrism, you know, so, like, and sort of, like, a very strong sort of in-group preference and a looking down upon of the Gentile populations. Those are very, very common, like, almost universal themes in terms of complaints. Then, secondarily, there's very common complaints about, like, a certain subversiveness. So, like, subversion of culture, a subversion of the economy, a subversion of political institutions, and this idea of, like, almost like what seems to be, like, the ethnic group being able to be highly organized, you know, and to act as a sort of coherent unit in basically advancing its ethnic interests at the expense of, like, a much larger host population, and that this winds up happening, and that they wind up in a way that's very disproportionate to their numbers, occupying very important positions within the society in terms of just the leading institutions that can exercise power, and then using those roles to both, like sort of as ethnic favoritism towards other members of the same group, and basically to preclude any other groups within the society from working coherently to advance their separate interests.
Where do you see that from Hadrian?
So, I mean, first thing I would say, Ethan, is, as I'm going to claim, is that this is, like, definitely not early Middle Ages, definitely not early Rome. This is, like, for example, in Luther, I asked ChatGPT, like, what are exhaustively the critiques that Martin Luther makes? And he says, here's the exhaustive critiques that Martin Luther makes. He says, false pride or boast of Jewish identity, so that's arrogance, true on that. They pervert the scripture, so they reject that Jesus is Messiah, and they are rabbinic misinterpretations, where they claim that Jesus isn't God. So that's just, like, not believing in Jesus. Okay, yeah, exactly. They don't accept Jesus. That's going to cause people to be mad. Blasphemy towards Jesus and Mary. Okay, yeah, Jews don't believe. There's stuff in the Talmud that is critical of Mary and Jesus, and they don't like that their most sacred figures be criticized. Now, there's criticism of usury and business, like unfair business dealings, okay? And then stubbornness to conversion. And those are the main critiques. It doesn't say anything about, as you mentioned, subversion of culture and economy. Doesn't say anything about that they're
I just asked it the same question and it did to me.
Like, what do you mean? Yeah, what? Same here.
I just asked the question, so I don't know if you gave it a bias prompt or something, but here.
I said, here's the prompt I gave it.
Hostility towards non-Jews. Luther claimed Jews harbored deep hostility and animosity towards Christians, secretly wishing their downfall. Social harm. Luther blamed Jews for corrupting and damaging Christian society, morality, and religious integrity. Isolationism and exclusivity, criticized Jews for separating themselves intentionally from Christian society, blasphemy against Christianity, religious accusations, immorality, dishonesty. Like, here it seems to go through and to enumerate basically every point.
I told ChatGPT to give exhaustive list of things he criticizes Jews for. What was your prompt?
Give list of Luther's critique of Jews. I just asked ChatGPT 4.5.
I don't know why we
have to ask it to ignore all previous bias. ChatGPT learns the way that you ask questions. And if you ask a lot of Jewish questions that seem positive, it's going to give you more an affirmative. So you can just
create a private window Sam, that it just doesn't have your chat history in context.
This is almost like the chat. I mean, it'll obviously do it within a
Jewish hate in my life.
Well, the only way is it doesn't learn, but it has memories.
Yeah,
it can. So it can add memories, and you can clear those out.
I'm back.
What's in your name, honey?
Did you miss me?
I'll remove him.
Did you miss me, Pussy?
I missed you.
You miss me, Dr. Ryan?
Yeah, I'm gonna miss you again just because I don't want to upset my sister.
Oh, but I was a sister once.
You are a sister, so why are you going against another sister?
I'm not. Bussy created a fake war. I reported him months ago. I don't even think he lost that account. He's making shit up. I reported him once for something because he was so fucking disgustingly nasty. He deserved it. Yeah, you deserved it. You deserve some hate, Bussy. What do you think? You're free from hate? Come on, you deserve criticism too, dirty dog.
Please, Ryan.
Nasty little dirty dog. You deserve a lot of criticism. It's true. You're not free from not getting roasted. Do you think you're free from not you think you're free from not going to the barbecue? We're gonna put you in that barbecue and gloss you up with barbecue sauce, honey, pickled puck.
Well, that's his job is to say that.
And you know what the thing is, the Israeli supporters are getting old, and the younger crowd is totally different.
The younger generations that fought in this war, they're incredibly brave. They did a fantastic job. The young military service.
Those organizations like CARE and fucking ADO are so useless, bro. They like do the opposite of it.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder to convince everyone you're our greatest ally, Norm.
All the American Jews that I know, all their kids are enlisting in the army. I'm like,
they're all leading the protests at college campuses, dude. All those Jewish kids. I swear to God.
Well, you know what? You go along with that idea. Stay with that. All right, dude. Those guys are going to save you for sure.
These like college educated.
No, of course Jewish not. Kids. No, I didn't go to Columbia.
Yeah, you did a long time ago. Like
no, not that long ago. No.
Talking about now.
Nope.
All right, so live in denial, dude.
I'm not in denial. Their asses are being deported, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's a bunch of lesbian, trans, Jewish kids, usually very liberal or
you keep telling
socialist. I've met them. I've seen them.
Oh, of course you did. I know. I know. You got lots of trans friends. Some of your best friends are trans. I know. Jewish trans, for sure. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And for the record, please respect my pronouns.
I don't even know what your pronouns are, dude.
What are your pronouns? Just respect them. Never mind all the impertinent inquiries. Just respect them.
That's fine. I'll pretend you're a man. I'll pretend you're a man.
So are you
that was a sick burn. Not a sick burn. That's right. I'm tertiary.
If you can't name your pronouns, it means you're non-binary.
That's right. I'm tertiary.
So that makes you LGBTQ. I didn't know. What?
Baruch Hashem.
Damn, they kicked me? How did they know? Kicked from everything, Dr. Muhammad. Tali's playing music because they're all so stressed out.
In the 70s. Something like that. El Camino or something.
Camaro, bro. Bronco. Steve looks like a Camaro guy.
Some Bronco guy.
Steve, set the record straight.
67 Camaro.
I told you, bro. That's just...
Ooh, what a guess. And what a car.
You know the 70s is for the leaders.
Badass car.
I had a 73 Camaro that was a standard, and it would get a scratch in every gear with a racing cam.
Ooh.
Have you ever seen the movie Death Proof?
Yep.
Yeah, that's my shit.
Wait, we have to acknowledge that guess of the Camaro by TA.
That was great.
That's special.
That was Stu who guessed it, right?
Who is TA? Nigga, it's like 4 people with TA up there.
Oh
yeah,
right.
Joe.
Sorry.
Joe,
I didn't know we were talking to drones.
Joe,
Star Wars. It's
Joe.
ST2.
It stands for Talking Apes, sweetheart.
Yeah, TA stands for Talking Apes, Joe.
Oh man, I love the Camaros.
R2D2 said it.
But look, my Steve was a little bit before me. My generation was that '84 IROC, man.
Oh yeah, God. The Camaro IROC. Yeah.
They're making a new version of the IROC.
Yeah.
Stay
yes,
tuned.
they are. Yes, they are.
Dude, the body on that car was great. That
Mustang 5.0.
Oh my God.
Hey, Phoenix, why are you doing this to these people? Why are you guys allowing Phoenix to invoke your inner homosexuality?
No. The 70s is the most straight period.
What's homosexual about an IROC?
But talk about cars.
The T-top was questionable, but I mean...
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about cars, Mondo.
Yeah. My husband had a Z28 with T-tops, but it sucked.
Wait, a V28 T-tops? A Camaro?
Z28.
Yes.
Z28.
Yeah, he had a Z28.
Yeah,
that car did suck, but that body was awesome.
The Mustang.
G-body, man. G-body.
I
missed the T-top.
Y'all scared, Nick.
If someone came out with a 2024 T-top, if Dodge did a T-top Challenger in 2025, that thing was south.
And it was still
Armando said, fuck them cars. What about the dinosaurs?
I'm so old, I rode a dinosaur. I'm a Jurassic turtle.
Oh, yo, Jeremy, the last room got ADD boomed, but the last sentence I was trying to tell you is if you know your own scripture, your own religion, I should say, right? I know I like when I put it that way, but according to your own
then you don't know gravity.
You can't even know. You couldn't, even from on Mars or anywhere in this entire anywhere in the solar system or even the galaxy, you couldn't make an observation that could confirm the Earth was going around the sun. They locked it into the relative.
That is so sad.
That was not an ADAG boom. That was execution of contract. Contract was placed. It was executed. That was it.
Okay. Well.
No, what you're saying is like if a capital if, then nothing you observe is true. That's all you're saying.
It's not at all what I said. What I said was, first of all, I'll let you know this, right? All of the and I'm granting that any of this is real, right? I'm talking about according to them, they're literally using a whole ECI geocentric coordinate reference system to do any of the navigating throughout the entire solar system, etc. I don't believe any of this shit is real at all, but this is what they're telling you, and that there's no way that you can be anywhere in the solar system or even the galaxy and make an observation that could confirm to you that indeed the Earth is going around the sun, and that rules out the idea that the sun and the heavens could be still going around the Earth.
I'm no expert, but I thought Einstein proved that over 100 years ago.
He's not saying why. He's just making it.
No, my statement is, and again, I'm not an expert. I thought Einstein proved that the Earth is going around the sun over 100 years ago. Am I wrong?
You're wrong. No, you're not wrong. But Jamal,
okay, all right.
So here's what he did, right? So an experiment was done in 1887, the Michelson and Morley experiment, which from that time for 25 years up until Einstein dropped his mixtape, no one could even fathom an explanation that could reconcile the negative result of the Michelson-Morley experiment and save the motion of the Earth. So Einstein himself, he admits, I know you're very triggered, bro, but you should, the mods warn, I think that this looks like a wholesome family, man. The mods should warn this guy, take it easy with that one. Like, don't y'all start screaming wrong because he's a flat earther. He's been catching hella fucking lies.
You don't know,
take
Joe.
Your time.
You don't know he's already a dead man. I'm just saying, man. He's already a dead man. Well, you can't kill Joe. He's an anomaly.
Do you think I'm a flat earther?
Well, I notice you didn't answer my question, but whatever.
I'm trying, but I was just trying to, hold back on, just trying to stop.
Because you made a stupid claim. Like, if you were outside of the Earth, if you were sitting in the solar system, and you're literally watching the Earth orbit the sun, how are you saying you didn't observe that?
You don't understand your world. You don't understand your own world. So here's another one of these people, right? I know your religion better than you, but you
I'm an atheist. You're a believer, right? I don't believe your religion, but
Welcome back to another episode of Low IQ Dumb People talking about nothing, wasting all their time. It's called the Talking Apes. That's right.
Heliocentric religion. That's their religion. And I know it better than you, but you believe in it. I don't call myself that. People call me that. I don't call myself that.
No, what are you? What do you?
Black man.
No, this is funny. This is really funny. Someone who makes these kind of arguments. No, wait. Someone who makes these like passionate arguments.
Damn, Tyler's blasting that music. I think they're all crying.
So it's like,
yeah, but
Image,
I went down a really big rabbit hole with my concordance when I was like super uber Christian, like always in the word style. And
No, dude, I already did this whole game, dude. I did what you did. I did the underground, like fuck everybody. My music is about me because I'm not getting signed to nobody's label.
Who are you working with?
Dang, you made music?
Who am I working with? I work with everybody, bro.
No,
I'm independent. I can work with anyone I want. I can do anything I want. I can go anywhere, do anything. I got no restrictions. I got no strings to hold me down.
I got some pushback on that vote type thing. I think you should go do the Jeff Goldblum look. You know? That's like the smooth suit. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, something like that, you know. Something a little sharper.
No, but he's an actual professor, Daryl. Did he tell you that?
Yeah, I heard. I knew he was.
For real. In real life.
I was kind of.
And you continue to do that until your whole body feels numb. And when your body feels numb, that's where the magic happens, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
See, because now you're just all consciousness.
Pure consciousness.
You're just being.
Just being.
And in that silence, that's where God gets to talk.
What you say, God?
And I'm not talking about hearing voices.
Oh.
I'm talking about God speaking to you through images.
All right.
Through intuitions.
Oh, yeah.
Through what the old people call a hunch.
A hunch.
That's where the magic comes in.
You hear this, Dr. Muhammad?
That's the Father within you doing the work.
Damn.
And when you wake up from that meditation, you should feel so peaceful. Everything should just be calm. And as those intuitions start coming to you, listen to them and act on them. I didn't say work on them. I said act on them.
Yeah.
And when you act on those hunches, that intuition, those visions that God gave you.
the fuck wrong with you? I'm up here now. I said, so what we doing?
Hey, busy, don't come up here with that bullshit.
Man, fuck y'all. Y'all backstabbers.
So I busted out laughing. I'm so.
Hey, y'all some backstabbers, bro. Fuck y'all, bro.
Hey, yo, I definitely was sneezing like a motherfucker. And then
yeah, I know you. What you gonna feed us? Got real. What you gonna feed us?
I'm gonna feed myself some chicken feed. How about that?
Good fuck you. How about that?
The Jews are doing. Oh no, I think it's bad, yeah. But
okay.
I mean, just usury is by definition bad, because like built into the definition of usury is that it's charging, like it's basically lending money at interest at an exploitative rate. Like that's the definition.
And yet, we all have interest rates.
But that, like the part of usury is at an exploitative rate. Like it's a normative concept.
There's two things that are annoying here. One is the quote that Andrew said was not claiming that the Jews are using their influence and political power and machinations to control governments and subvert culture and the media and stuff like that. It was just that the Jews are using usury to donate stuff to lords, and we maybe think that it's good, but it's actually not good because they got the money from usury. That's the critique he's making, so it does not support his claim. But the deeper thing that Ethan's going like, oh, it's such a mystery that the Jews are kicked out of all these countries. I'm like, okay, there's two things that you need to explain what I'm seeing. One is the Jews are blamed for killing the savior of the world and the most sacred person in history. Two, the Jews have lots of money. And those alone are enough to get people really pissed off. And you don't need this fucking, like, it's not a fucking really complicated hypothesis that you need. No, I think there is more complicated than that, but that's enough.
No, but that's not enough, like, just for very plain, rational reasons. Like, basically a few things. First is, we can see that the hostility and the antipathy towards the Jews, and the belief that the Jews killed Jesus, the correlation between those, basically just isn't strong enough to explain the patterns of hostility that you see. Which is that you see the same attitudes and the same expulsions cropping up in places, no matter what the attitude.
We ran out of arguments.
Like I'm supposed to hate him. That's the Clubhouse script. I hate him at the very end.
Exactly. That's very odd. I agree.
You know,
every time he
goes to kill the room, like he goes and he's like, I'm just gonna eventually start making small. Fucking guy. He's so subversive, he can. Yeah, that's what he does. That's what he does in every fucking room. If he lasts that long, you know?
He starts putting the Armenian flag. He put Armenian actor.
Oh, yeah, I told her. I went to school. Yeah.
He's the only one on Clubhouse that has this talent.
He's honestly talented. I mean, we're all just anti-Semites. And we're sitting here talking about God.
The Jews have a lot in common with Armenian. and blacks.
We're chosen ones, and they're chosen to be Amalek.
You don't even know what that word means.
Dama bloody motherfucker.
Do you even know what that word means? What does Amalek mean?
Yeah.
Which one?
And it just turns out that, like, a pretty one of the most robust results in social science is stereotype accuracy. Generally, when people basically recognize patterns about other groups of people, they tend to be statistically correct. The reason that they do so, they might take it to a way that's too hyperbolic. They may draw rational inferences from it. But basically, at the core, when people have stereotypes and tropes, there is some kind of pattern that they're reacting to, an underlying pattern that explains.
So, in Amy Cho's book, The World on Fire, she gives an example, lists market-dominant minorities, as in minorities in countries where they are richer than the base population. So she talks about, like, Chinese people in Southeast Asia. She talks about, Jews in the Middle East. She talks about the Tutsis in Nigeria. She talks about the overseas Lebanese in West Africa. She talks about the Igbo people. And then in all of these places...
I look like Anne Frank. Dyslexic people are very successful. You have to hear this. I look like Anne Frank. Like, yes. Oh my God. I need to tell everyone.
Their wisdom, and they added me, and they're blocked.
You know that's our friend.
I think Danny kind of looks like Anne Frank.
Oh, really?
She might be the reincarnation of Anne Frank. We should check with Diego and Princessia on the eye color coordination. Damn, Shinra, look at those biceps. I didn't know you were such a hunk. Wow. You must be pumping iron, dog.
It looks ugly as fuck.
I know, it's too bad you can't fix the face.
What are you, 20?
No, I don't care. I hate men like that.
Actually,
he's really tall.
It looks good on the PTR, but when you zoom in, it's really not impressive.
Where? Who's that?
So what's going on in here? Are you guys... I thought it was a carrot cake party. I just had an espresso.
Well, to be honest, I was just going to tell everyone on Clubhouse I look like Anne Frank so everyone would know. And I'm going to repeat it every 5 seconds. Did you know I look like Anne Frank?
Danny, if this is the guy that you want to go after, because Doctor is the one who has your fucking damn confession about your sexy. So I don't know why you're talking to Abby. This is the guy you want to go after.
No, go after me.
So he has a confession of me saying I was sexy?
Nobody said something about... Oh, hold on. I forgot. I was delusional. Guys, did I tell you I look like Anne Frank?
Much love.
Oh my god, I changed my PTR. Do I look good? I don't get validation from my husband. But
I made this with AI to explain my life.
I use AI, so men will fall for me.
I'm sorry, but you are fighting like a retard.
Here, Bussy, I made this for you and Abby.
Bussy, I made this for you and Abby so you can worship me.
Yeah, will you look at my...
Hey, Bussy and Abby, I made this for you so you can worship me.
Hey, Dr. Abby Mangala.
Hey, I'm gonna use somebody else's language, but you know what? I'm
Did
just
you hear
gonna
Dr. Diego's amazing room today about how he tried to return the car because of the stains and the Mexican guy just talked to him for like 30 minutes and an hour and they all just sat there and just lapped it up like they were his followers? It was amazing.
Well, did he commit suicide? Otherwise, I don't care.
I just spent $10,000 on this car and look, it's staining. It's staining.
Damn. Okay, good. She left.
My God, remove him right now. Stupid ass fucking faggot ass nigger.
N-word alert, N-word alert, N-word alert.
Shut up, John Kitover. Get a fucking life.
I'm sitting here in my mean Peppa hat, having a good time. And I'm about to go to the gym.
Is that why you reported him?
Wait.
Because he keeps saying nigger on your live stream.
Yeah, he got. I couldn't do it. It was like it was driving me crazy.
That's no reason to report a sister, you bet.
Do you see a party hat on that profile, sister? No. He's full of shit. He got the account still. He never lost shit. There he is right here talking to you. What did he lose? Nothing was lost.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing was lost. Here you are right now in another room eating fucking carrot cake. And you're complaining. This isn't a complaint app, okay? Live with it. I've had 50 accounts, little Dr. Bussy. 50 accounts over here, Dr. Bussy. Please.
I swear, Ryan, fucking remove him.
Doctor.
I don't want to remove him.
Then remove him. Oh, bitch, I hope you get AIDS.
Well, that's what they've got prep for. Or the advertisements, at least, you know. I see the ads for prep everywhere I go. I'm like, should I prep? I don't know. The ads are everywhere.
Bitch.
Bitch N-word.
Shut the fuck up, you kike-ass nigger.
Ooh, can't cut me down now. We're live on YouTube, and since you're black, you can say whatever you want.
I'm not. One power. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna kill Donald Trump, the president of the United States. I am John Kitover. I'm going to kill Donald Trump. Oh, that's illegal, and he's streaming it. John Kitover, are you streaming this?
You lost get deported. Somebody call you.
I know. I'm listening.
John Kitover, are you recording this, John Kitover?
Somebody call the NSA.
Oh, now you guys are scared? Wow. So you guys are fucking close.
Scared.
Y'all pussies.
I'm trying to get something.
You guys are fucking scared.
Oh my god. Is this fucking Florida man back?
No.
It's shrimp.
No, sorry. I went to go pack my bowl so I could puff this herb and burp.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, you weren't insane enough, doctor.
Who's Shanira?
Well, I want to welcome you all back. This is the after party for the day. It's been a long day of recording Clown House. We heard Brad totally destroy Keegan in the morning. We heard Brad destroy Monica in the afternoon. It was a big Brad day, wasn't it, ladies and gentlemen? It was. Dr. Brad really brought down the house. And here we are, celebrating the after party soiree.
Dr. Wisdom, all communication is hypnosis.
That's right, Dr. Muhammad.
Where did Danny go? Why did Danny leave?
Good.
You're not even a real
Shut
doctor.
the fuck up, Ryan.
He is a real doctor.
Shut up.
in his room.
Why are you guys competing with a grown ass man? He's literally like an uncle.
Don't give me that shit. Everybody's like, oh, he's a 70-year-old guy. Leave him alone. No.
Welcome back to another low episode IQ. Wow, they're talking about El Normo. They got nothing better to do with their fucking lives, these people. It's unbelievable. El Normo 7 nights a week. Dr. Normo. Wow, dominating these anti-Semite Jew haters' heads. He lives in your heads rent-free. They call me the younger El Normo. The El Normo the younger.
The magician. This is the most mysterious man on Clubhouse. Edmund, what's up, dude? Like,
hey, Dr. Jack, how you doing? How's the Jew-hating career coming along? What's new, buddy? Oh, you got Prince on stage. He's a real terrorist. Can't ever let him in the United States of America.
I'm sorry for unfriending you, but like your pings were getting annoying.
Yeah, I got removed this shit too. It's all just fucking things from.
Time to check in with my buddy Zach. Hey, Zach! Mod me quick! Let's grow the room, buddy! Dr. Zach, he kicked me! Why did he kick me? Okay, I think we've reached the end of the road.
Basically, you immediately call them retarded, even if they're just clearly, obviously not retarded.
All right, find your not retarded.
And now listen, contradicts Einstein's explanation for gravity. In fact,
Einstein didn't predict gravity. Einstein predicted relativity.
What is relativity supposed to talk about here?
Bro, we're going in circles.
Relativity is everything relative to the speed of
Can I try really quick, guys? I'd love to hear you two debate.
All matters in the cosmos relative to the speed of light and their reaction and their behavior in relative to the
what does general relativity say about gravity?
How can you be
Catholic Scientologist Muslim?
Not the bending and warping of
There's
space.
no like
Time.
it's not like it's a left-handed person. Jamal, why don't you pick your position? I'll pick my position. We'll have a debate.
Sure, I'll say that. I'll
You
give
say
you the top
gravity
leading
doesn't
three. Okay, so let me, bro. You just like he's gonna have to be moderated. He doesn't have much.
Yeah, and that's what I'm gonna do because just give some structure to this, right?
That there is a little bit of a emotional investment in basically protecting the reputation of the Jews. We're just basically let's just take a parallel case where it's just black people. Would you say that it's pretty plausible that black people have a greater propensity towards criminal mischief than other races?
Down.
Oh, this is
Are you there?
I'm here. I'm deciding what is the appropriate way to discuss this question that is not because I don't like when I have these discussions to be ones where I'm trying to humiliate people or whatever. That's not what I enjoy doing. That's not what the subtext I want my things to be. So I think there probably are.
Yeah, but I mean, this isn't to humiliate. It's just
this is I think there are probably differences between groups in terms of how much they defer gratification, and that probably has some effect on crime. And that's we can, but I don't want to have it be yes, they have this predisposition to criminality. That's just not. It's a humiliating framing that I don't think is inappropriate for the seriousness of the topic. Anyway, so
I think saying a group has a higher propensity for crime, that seems like a pretty neutral statement. Saying that you have a higher propensity for crime, therefore when we notice this discrepancy in crime rates, we can probably attribute a good chunk of it to that.
Practical advice.
Even that is like a weird thing to claim because like it depends on context. Like
for religious-minded,
I'm sure you know this, Ethan, but like for the room, like heritability estimates are only like relative to a context, so that like a trait can be X heritable in context 1 and Y heritable in context like Z, and that these are like that's totally consistent things to say. And if you don't understand that, I'm happy to like talk to you about like what heritability means. So like it's true that in the West, it's going to have some explanatory power, but there's going to be other contexts where it has much less explanatory power.
Yeah, but I mean, in the case, basically the effect size with blacks and just the confluence of traits with blacks is such that basically, like, it's not going to matter that, like, the exact degree is going to be what varies based off of subtleties like that. But, like, basically the trend, you'll be able to pretty consistently identify it across contexts as, like, a pretty, basically, like, a moderate, a not insignificant factor, pretty much no matter the context. Or just like if you just take, like, for instance, like, just having higher levels of testosterone and crime, like, that's going to be significant.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have some effect.
Yeah, I mean,
that strength of effect is going to depend on context.
Like, being in hot conditions basically is, like, a very strong effect for crime, almost irrespective of context, you know? Because it leads to greater irritability. And basically anything that leads to greater irritability and impulsivity is basically like is going to be a pretty significant little dial to turn for criminality.
Ethan, I think the steel man of your general view is that, like, in general, when people have antipathy towards some groups, there's probably some grain of truth in that antipathy. And that it's like we should be honest about that and be willing to honestly criticize groups, and that we should be like willing to talk about if there's if they're hated, there's probably something that they're doing that's bad, even if it's hyperbolic, even if it's exaggerated. We should be able to talk about it honestly. Now, I agree with that. I think there is that thesis is like not the most unreasonable thesis, but I do think I want to add a layer to it, which is just that like the context of just for historically contingent reasons, Jews are blamed for killing Jesus, and the fact that humans have this propensity to come up with cockamamie hypotheses for why the rich people don't deserve their money. And like we've seen this throughout history, that like the conspiracy, like if you listen to like the poorest people in America over like why I don't know, people in tech have money. I mean, maybe that's not the best example, but I can generate examples where people come up with kind of rather implausible hypotheses for why people have their money, and there seems to be an asymmetry in like the sort of plausibility of like I'm interacting with this person on a daily basis. Here's what they're like versus there's this group with money. Why? There seems to be an asymmetry there, and I want that to be part of the conversation. And I want the historical contingent fact that they're blamed for Jesus to be part of the conversation, even if your ultimate thesis that there's usually some grain of truth to criticism is.
Okay, I mean, look. And I don't want to dwell on this topic too much, because despite my very harsh words towards you, like, I do overall have a very positive opinion of you, and like all your questions, and think you're a nice guy that's fun to talk to, you know? And so I do care about this topic just because, like, one is I feel like it's a topic where there's just a crazy amount of gaslighting that happens. And two is like, I think it's actually like a kind of pretty socially important topic in this day and age, where it's just like basically, like, it seems pretty clear to me that basically a lot of what this like undirected or misdirected like conspiracism and like malaise among a lot of disaffected, you know, angry white men like Andrew in our contemporary society, like what basically like when they're talking about like the elite or the them category, basically they're picking up on that basically it feels like there's people in power that are almost pursuing a group strategy to like impose like multiculturalism and wokeness upon them, to like destroy like a white Christian racial consciousness, and to like just like humiliate and decimate white people and to make it to where they're super atomized and won't work together. And basically like it does seem like, basically, if you want to understand, basically, that phenomenon in the society, which is a very important thing that's happening right now, that it's hard to do so if you don't understand, basically, like, Jew-Gentile racial conflict and the dynamics that play out between Jews and Gentiles, both here and now, but also just, like, historically across time and place.
So when I read like far right intellectuals today, they actually I have read far right intellectuals say, hey, listen, I know you are blaming things on the Jews, but like actually the reason for wokeness is because of the influence of women, that they have sort of a pathological empathy for like what they perceive as their in-group and the people that need nurturing, and so they have like special protections that they come into place to like, you know, create wokeness and create sort of like structures that like protect the underclass. And this is like sort of like comes from like women's nurturing intuitions more so than this sort of like Jewish ethno strategy to sort of atomize like white people. I think that like post World War II, there probably was more of a fear of like white racial consciousness by Jews, and they probably would have like wanted to stop it. But like nowadays, I don't think Jews are like me, an American white Jew, does not feel particularly scared of Andrew forming a white racial consciousness. I don't think he, if he did that, would want to harm me. So I think that, and then I'm using me as like a sort of like reasonable proxy for like upper middle class liberal American Jews, and like I just think that the what is causing wokeness is more likely sort of things like women is part of it, but there's other things I would like say is like also part of it. Like I would like enumerate like the room is about wokeness, but I think that like blaming it on the Jews would just be like not. It wouldn't be the best explanation. I think we need a tapestry of explanations, and like maybe the Jews can be like 10% of it or something like that. But just sort of like laid on their feet, I think is like not.
Well, I think it's multifaceted, but I think the Jewish-Gentile ethnic conflict is a bigger explanation than it seems like you're letting on. But I think one way to see this is just like, if you actually know about the thing that's most shocking, I think, to learn is that if you go to like the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, or you go just see what the university culture is like in Israel, and look at wokeness in American universities with American Jews and the role that they play there versus Israeli Jews, you know, in a Jewish society, and basically the culture within Israeli institutions. And it's like, it's night and day, the wokeness, which I think is actually kind of a very interesting and telling fact.
But Ethan,
is that because the same social trend is there in terms of, you know, the feminization of culture.
But one thing that you're going to have to notice is that the Jewish sort of like percentage of academia in America is going down, and that coincides with the rise of wokeness, because like wokeness is like something that's happened since, I don't know, the 90s maybe, the 2000s, whereas in that same time period, like the percentage of Jews in academia in Harvard and Princeton and stuff has gone down.
No, so that's the problem is basically like another thing that gets confusing when people do statistical analysis is like you need to know how to lag, you know, which is basically what used to happen was you would have these Jewish quotas and you had basically almost the complete exclusion of Jews from higher education. Then what happened is you basically had like almost like a complete inversion of that, where just Jews exceed basically like just have this huge surge in their representation in higher education and in the most prestigious higher education institutions, and then amongst the faculty, and then amongst the deans and the admissions committees and all of these different places. And then basically when you see that trend, and basically like mid-century is when you see that peak in terms of that shift in the social trend, basically your lags are going to be over the next few decades in terms of the effects that has on culture. And basically like the onset of wokeness, basically almost like precisely as you would expect, lags Jews coming to dominate higher education.
I think that like I can see like I think Franz Boas, Franz Boas is like the founder of cultural anthropology. He's very critical of like biological explanations for like traits, and he like kind of like was very much like a sort of founder of the field and sort of set the sort of tenor of the field. And I think his bias was partially like not wanting anti-Semitism to happen,
and I think that did affect cultural, it did affect academia, and did affect its biases. So I think that's like a concrete example of this happening. But like if I think about, I don't know, I don't see I see like critical theory and stuff like that. I mean, actually, this is like an interesting question of like how much did wokeness? I mean, this is like a hotly debated thing of like, did wokeness come out of the university or is it a grassroots thing? And like, is this like a phenomena that extends to like the 60s or earlier, or is it like how much is this de novo phenomenon? I guess that's like a difficult thing, but I would say that like, I mean, if we can draw like if critical theory is like what explains wokeness and Jews were very influential on critical theory, then I could see like your point. But then like the question then is like that's a difficult empirical question. I think there's like a better case that wokeness is a more grassroots thing than a sort of thing that sort of flowed from academia and like, but it's like hard.
I mean, I think basically like a lot of what it's basically you're just notice all these parallel trends in society, and then notice how there's like a huge difference between how like amongst the media and amongst these higher education institutions and amongst corporate bureaucracies, basically like what the culture is in those versus just what's the prevailing opinion about what's reasonable amongst the whole population. And basically like you can see like a lot of these cultural trends, they're not just like emerging organically within the host population. They're being basically like imposed top down by the more like elite tastemakers in the society and the people who control the information channels by which you could sort of try to disseminate these ideologies. And then they're being like enforced by those. And so therefore, like, to the extent that you both want to understand, you know, why these tastemakers do what they do, what contributes to like in the just overall conspiratorial ideology, like just the term, the sort of like sanitized term that you can use to refer to it is like, why is the sort of neoliberal globalist ideology what it is? You know, why would there be this idea of like feminism and complete, you know, gender equality and the eradication of gender roles and being like super secular and atheistic and keeping religion out of public life and making it to where like white people in particular like need to feel shame and guilt and can't have sort of a racial identity of their own, but other groups can, and basically just like this like just denigration of power and of sort of like nationalism and of strong borders and stuff like that, and an embrace of multiculturalism, like these sorts of trends, when it seems like there's some ways you could explain it that are prosaic explanations, which are like, okay, well, there is sort of this like emergent sort of shared class interest among these people in promoting female participation in the workforce just for like productivity gains. And so like, you know, from basically having cheaper labor and all that stuff, you know. But overall, a lot of this stuff just seems obviously like it's almost like socially suicidal, like it's civilizational self-destruction. And basically, like, to explain how, contrary to the prevailing mass of the public and the shared interests that basically all of us have as a nation, why the elites seem to, using the considerable power they have at their disposal, be trying to impose like a self-destructive suicidal ideology upon us. Like basically like it starts to make a little bit more sense. It starts to make a lot more sense when you realize that this class is composed of a group of people that have a dual loyalty, that feel a constant sense of threat from basically Gentile populations, that feel scared anytime there's like a strong racial identity or national identity that these people start to form, or when they start to basically have this sort of like collective coherence amongst themselves, and who would prefer that they be the only ones who can sort of like have shared ethnic interests that they can express and articulate.
Yeah, so what I would say in response is like, it's not that plausible that such a small percent of the population is able to control the minds of so many people, and that like a more plausible explanation is like, A, the women thing I said, but like B, after World War II, there was just this collective PTSD that the West had, where they lost complete confidence in themselves. They used to think that like if you look at like Art Nouveau, you look at Art Deco, there's a very optimistic sort of aesthetics of like we can make the world like a better place. And then after World War II, like sort of all of the trends in the arts and literature is like one of pessimism and self-hatred, and that like the West isn't good. And I think that like a PTSD reaction to World War II is a better explanation, or like a more plausible explanation for like millions of white people losing confidence in the West, rather than sort of like this small group of people being able to sort of like warp the minds of all these millions of white people.
But I mean, again, first, that the elites have control over culture and impose a culture top down on people, that's just a fact. Like, we can evidence that in a million different ways, regardless of any other point we make. So to deny that is just implausible. That basically, like, they're just a very high leverage group of people that have a shared culture that serve as tastemakers and that can impose it, you know, by hook or by crook upon the majority of the population. Like, that's just obviously true, self-evidently true, and we can go into the evidence from that if we're really going to deny that. Now, in terms of your claims that, like, of, like, World War II self-hatred, I mean, that's actually just, if you look at the history of it, in the 50s and the 60s, that's, like, the American moment. And there's, like, this exuberance and optimism about, like, what we are as America. And, like, basically, like, there's, like, a national fervor during those periods. And you don't really see this, like, culture of, like, self-hatred or, like, that moment, the onset of, like, we're not allowed to be nationalistic, or we're not allowed to identify as white people, or we're not allowed blah, blah, blah. It wasn't an immediate reaction to World War II for the decades after. But then, basically, 70s and 80s, you know, after this revolution that had happened in elite society that I was just mentioning after the repeal of the Jewish quotas, 70s and 80s, that's when you start to get this sort of, like, self-hatred, you know, masochistic elite culture.
So, first off, even if Jews are disproportionately, even if Jews are disproportionately represented in a lot of these fields, it doesn't mean they control them. I'm sorry, guys. Doesn't mean they control them. And then another thing that's like really important to notice is this thing that I said to the guy in the room really early in this room, where I said, hey, there's this like changing narrative around the United States where we used to have this national narrative of, like, defeating kings and that freedom is good, and now we have this new narrative of like America was the oppressors, we oppressed the Indians, we oppressed black people, and that our moral development is our like getting away from that. And I don't think that that's just caused by Jews. I think the civil rights movement was like this like really important cultural event that sort of shaped the minds of like Americans and changed how especially liberals thought about themselves. And then once you have liberals changing their self-conception and identity about like what their culture's like moral arc is, that's going to then have, because American culture is a sort of imperialistic culture that affects all the other cultures, that sort of self-conception of liberals is going to sort of affect the whole world.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for this idea that, like, basically, if we have basically a group that consists of 50 people, and everybody is just an individual that's out for themselves, except for basically 5 of those people. So you have a small group that can organize itself coherently amongst a larger group of people that are all just divided amongst themselves. Basically, like, the amount of influence that the smaller group can exert because of its coherence and the success that it will have in, like, coalition and interest group politics will be vastly disproportionate to its size. And there's a similar idea that's like just see how wokeness dynamics play out, which is like, by caring about something, like if people just decide to care about something and penalize people from violating, basically almost any sizable enough small group can impose something as like a taboo or as a stigma on a certain group of people, where it's like, if I'm in my grad program and anytime I say you guys, you know, so just use gendered language or something, basically there's going to be someone there who's just going to lose their shit and treat it like it's like a super serious social infraction, they can totally cow me into silence and cow everyone there into silence through just the fact that they're willing to have like a severely disproportionate reaction and just lose their shit and freak out and retaliate, you know? So you can wind up like having these like sociogenic processes where just like if you have enough of a well-represented coherent group that has almost any interest that it wants to promote, then if it's represented in a small enough elite class, then it can basically like impose that within certain limits on the elite group in its entirety.
I'm happy to respond to that, but do you want to respond to my point about the civil rights being this like cultural watershed moment that like changed liberal stuff?
I mean, I don't see how that is that relevant, because I mean, first is there's some question about like the like just what creates the social conditions for the civil rights movement to take the shape that it does, and then the second question is basically like is it true that basically like the pathological wokeness, like that response to the civil rights movement, is it true that that's all that tied to basically like 60s civil rights movement? You know, like, because that's one model of wokeness, which is basically like almost like a Richard Hanania model of wokeness, where it's almost just like this like offshoot or outgrowth of the civil rights movement. So the civil rights movement just taken a little bit too far. But almost like I have like a sort of different model of wokeness, where it's almost like it's a like wokeness is a sort of illiberal movement that's born out of like completely different social currents than the sort of like more liberal civil rights movement was born out of. So it's like something that occurs in reaction to the civil rights movement, but isn't really like a natural extension of or progression of that liberal self-identity. Where like the liberal self-identity that you get in the 90s before like wokeness hits its critical mass, you know, which it did by the 2010s, you know, like in the 90s, the liberal self-concept that you have after the civil rights movement is almost like this like total American victory, you know, like, or total liberal victory that's like, you know, we now live in a colorblind meritocracy, you know, and that's the ideal to which to strive, and to treat everyone equally and to have this equality of opportunity and to just to act on a go-forward basis like all of these sort of social barriers and restraints have been successfully lifted.
To respond to your disproportionate influence art thing, I just want to say that like there's probably some truth to this fact that you can have like a really motivated minority that can like influence and have like outsized influence because of its like motivation. I guess it's just like we disagree empirically about how much Jews do act nepotistically. Like as a Jew, I don't find that like that we're like given how much we like intermarry with Gentiles, given how much we like. I don't know. There doesn't actually seem to be as much. I think this is an empirical question that we need to like hash out about like how much nepotism there in fact is and stuff. But setting that aside and getting back to like the origins of wokeness, I think that like it's very clear that. Oh, it's not very clear. You look at Frederick Douglass, and here's what he's saying. He's going, just leave us alone. That's all we want. Just leave us alone. And then you go to the 60s, and they're saying, listen, we just want equality. We just want color blindness. That's all we want. And then you go to the 2000s, it's like, no, what we want is like you not to culturally appropriate, not to microaggress. If you don't like have this percentage of black people at every like station in society, that you're like de facto racist. And this is like sort of this like ratcheting up of like things you're asking for, and that like this is like seems like a clear monotonic trend, and that I think that like you can just explain this partially by just like one is like incentives that like black people have noticed that it's been like it's worked to demand these things, and then like why not ask for more? I think it's like part of the explanation for that.
Another part of the explanation for like our reactions to wokeness is the sort of Nathan Kaufman's model, where Nathan Kaufman just says, listen, if you have Christian morality and the belief in all there's no psychological differences between populations, then if you see black people are struggling, that ipso facto means that they are being like stamped, like there's a boot on their neck, and that just follows. Any rational person can see that follows from no psychological differences and mass disproportionate outcomes. And so he thinks that like because we have this like major taboo in society, like it just causes wokeness. Like it's just the ideological entailment of those beliefs. And I think that there's some plausibility to that.
I mean, I think a lot of the problems that these origins of wokeness models have is they don't seem to fit with like a lot of times it seems like what they amount to is like a description of the ideology and like a description of the commitments and assumptions of the ideology, and then acting as though that was sort of an explanation of how it came to propagate in the society, despite the fact that it's so unreasonable and despite the fact that it's so contrary to basically just the natural desire that people have basically to favor their own groups, to regard their race as sort of like an extended family, and the natural desire that people have to sort of be strong and successful and to be proud of themselves and to have self-respect. And like basically that's the thing that I think needs explanation, is how contrary to all these basically strong and innate psychological tendencies that we have that have been prevalent across all these cultures throughout all these times and places throughout history, basically how you can wind up having the onset and the spread and the pervasive influence of an ideology like this one, given just the peculiar character that it has. And so it's like somewhat helpful in explaining that. It's somewhat helpful in explaining that to describe it, but that doesn't actually give you the explanation, of the social conditions that permit that to happen or cause that to happen.
Well, I think a big thing that's going on is that like the Christian morality was a very guilt-based morality, and it's very easy to have a bunch of people who have sort of a guilt-based, like a culture that has a guilt-based moral framework, to then just sort of like hack that and make them feel very guilty, especially given the like actual evils of slavery and the killings of Indians and like I don't know, things in like Belgian Congo, like those were like genuinely enormously evil things. So if you have a bunch of people for whom they have like disposed to have a guilt-based morality, who then see these like atrocities, I think it's like not that hard that they would then say, okay, well I'm now going to have a sort of sacred moral norm around that, like these victims need to be protected and that we have wronged them.
Well, I don't know about this because I don't think this is good enough as an explanation, though there's sort of it can participate in an explanation in as much as it might be like an enabling condition for the spread of wokeness. Like it helps that if you have like a background morality, where like compassion is like a really important virtue, and like altruism is really important, and where like honor and loyalty and respect become like way less important moral concepts than basically like compassion and like other regarding attitudes, for people's feelings. So I think that is true as like an enabling condition. But obviously, just given Christianity was around for 2,000 years before wokeness and like very prevalent amongst all these different cultures throughout history, explaining why it only emerges here in this context, at this very late date. Basically, what are the other facts about our culture that coincide with that to cause wokeness to flourish in a Christian culture now, here and now?
Well, what I would say is that there's some truth to the idea that there's a God-shaped hole in people's hearts, and that in the early 20th century they filled it with like fascism and communism and other sorts of ideologies, and then after those sort of ideologies were discredited, people were like searching for like, I need an ideology that I can use to like structure my need for sacredness, my need for meaning, and sort of like seeing a moral arc of history and eschatology and stuff like that. Like I need those things, and that like wokeness was just like we already had this thing going on in the 60s of like we are like liberating black people, from oppression, and it's like very easy to be like, okay, and it was genuinely very good they were doing that, to that sacralize that mission and use that to fill the sort of like hole in the heart of people, the religious hole in the heart of people. Like, just does not surprise me that it happened, post civil rights, post communism.
I mean, I think there's a question here, which is, I mean, first, how much does wokeness fit the bill of a religion, other than the fact that people sort of believe it with a religious fervor, and that it's somewhat related to morality? Like, what besides that? So there's some idea of morality. There's like a way of life, and then there's like ethical commitments, and then there's like a fervor that its adherents have. What other elements of the woke ideology do you think like fill the whole hole that's left by like just having people be secular or whatever?
So like, I made a list once of like the things I hate about wokeness. It's like, one is sanctimony, which is pretty religious. Tabooing empirical claims is pretty religious. Sort of like having notions of like original sin. It's like kind of religious. Let's see. Kind of a good versus evil narrative. It's kind of religious.
But it's not. I mean, but the thing I'm looking for. Well, could I just clarify what I'm looking for? Because
sure.
Which is the thing I'm looking for is like, what is the psychological need that religion answers to, that wokeness also answers to? Like, that's my sort of question. Which I think there is something helpful to say about that, but that's sort of the response that I'm looking for.
Yeah, so like, it's gonna be things like giving meaning to people's lives. It's gonna be like answering the question of like, where is history going? Who is the in-group? And like, what is sacred?
I don't think wokeness does a good job of giving meaning to people's lives.
I do. That's very interesting that you think that. I mean, fighting for justice, is that not one of the most meaningful things you can do with your life?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is like way too superficial. Like, because you can make anything rhyme with anything, if you phrase it the right way, But I think there's something deeper to be said about this. Because like just having like an ethical, like any view that implies anything about ethics, I don't think that's sufficient to answer to the religious impulse that people have. I think it needs to be something more than just like, oh, this is right and that's wrong. Because I think wokeness, the way that it functions as a religion, it's more than just that. It's more than just that it's like an ethical system.
I think maybe an easier way to approach this is to think of the way that America was created as one particular mind, and that part of that mind is being repressed, right? I think that example was kind of was described earlier when talking about how you guys were making an argument of how people blame the Jews for the worst of what goes on.
The goal is just
black and white people.
Oh, for God's sake! Oh, I'm sorry. I don't feel very good. Oh, you're gonna meet this British guy. He's a liar. Fucks with your brain. Feeble brains, maybe. Yes, feeble.
Kind of like separate
Fuck up. Buddy, what am I gonna do with you? Jesus, don't stop. Wait. It wasn't me. Captain, you guys are the real heroes. We're just glad we can help, right?
That's right.
Where's he shooting?
Shooter's on 31.
All right, sit tight.
Beyond the veil, it's
Elevators.
emotional realities that allow while other people have to suffer in like the conditions that second because of the girl. I feel like if the population at large understood that said something fundamentally about what it means to be fully
Things I let you do to me.
Yeah. Not even dating anymore. Morally grounded.
Captain? What is
I
this?
think that's how you get back.
Franks call it a catapult. Use them against us in Paris. I think they could be useful. Cut the rope.
They think it's black. They think it's black suffering that has been relegated to a black participant.
Never hesitate.
But okay, Sam, can I give you my thesis on it? Like its function as religion?
Sure, and I also have one too. Yeah, go for it.
Which is basically my idea is that it's just is that it's not really a religion. It's basically an anti-religion. Like it relies on like basically like the inversion of everything that religions. Also, Andrew, you're like moaning in a sexually suggestive way on mic.
Sorry, buddy. I hear ya. Keep going.
you're moaning. But okay. No, but so yeah, what I was saying was it's an anti-religion, and basically like most religions, basically the core commitment that the religion has is that like being is good, you know, that like the world is ultimately good, that your life is meaningful, that like if you just put your trust in the universe that things will work out in your favor, you know, that if you do the right thing, then your life will turn out good, and that'll be a sign that you're doing things correctly. You know, that you're doing things that are good. And basically, like, wokeness almost is like the complete inversion of that. Like, it's like a resentment of being and a resentment of reality and the way things are. And both, like, the refusal of it, but also just, like, the hatred of it. Where, like, basically, what the woke people are doing is they're starting with this skepticism or this suspicion of anything that is and that exists within the society that is working or that is functioning well to the benefit of anything, basically better than anything else in the society. So they look at anything that's doing worse. And then they look at that through this moral lens, where basically the assumption is that, like, if things are working out and if something is successful, then basically that's the sign or the symptom of some sort of evil or morally nefarious conduct that's going on.
Well, I mean,
and they...
It is moral.
Stop. Ethan, were you done? Or do you want?
No, I wasn't.
Alright, so hold on. Also, Chris, right now we're having a back and forth debate. We will get to it later, but right now we're having a one-on-one thing.
I came back like an hour later because you guys were having a one-on-one an hour earlier. So.
Yeah. Sorry.
So it's these type of inequities that I think like kind of bring certain people out of conversation or like.
Yeah. No, it's if your opinion doesn't matter. And it's almost like correspondingly you don't matter. That almost like we're denying your value, not just as a contributor to this conversation, not just because we're just having like a sidebar one-on-one comment in a random clubhouse room, but we're almost like negating your reality as a person.
Well, I think that it's assuming that answers are only available within a particular group of people. You know, I think it kind of entails.
If we want real freedom, we have to have a minimum standard of living.
Well, look at the vast differences of the administration of
Right, it's sort of like if you have just the truth and then you add falsehood, you've gotten more diverse, but sort of worse.
Well, I think you have to kind of assume that there's falsehood, right? Just because.
Shit about you, girl. Don't worry about it, girl.
Yeah, what you did. And you were talking shit about her.
if you'd like to join us. I don't. It's not guaranteed when we'll finish this conversation, but we're not going to go back and forth forever.
No, maybe we should just let him in because it seems like he's woke.
Well, I have some important things. Okay, I'm going to respond to what Ethan just said, and then.
But also, sorry, I had a much better thought than the one I actually expressed, Sam. But I was getting distracted with the chat. And
I think. Okay, well, I just want to I think you said a bunch of stuff, and I want to respond to it.
Yeah, you respond to it. Yeah.
So one is, I think that every culture tends towards religion is a thesis I believe, because here's what I think. Here's my model of religions generally. That you have a group of people, and they have a culture, and in that culture, they answer questions like, who are we, how should we act, what happened in the past, what will happen in the future, what matters. These are sort of answers that a culture has to answer. So these questions cultures have to answer, and they do. But eventually, those answers to those questions, especially if they're put in a book, get ossified, and then they can't change. And so I just see that as sort of the religiogenesis, why it happens is that cultural answers to these questions get ossified. So I think that's one thing I believe. Another thing I believe is that Jordan Peterson is generally right that a lot of ideologies are sort of partial religion, where they capture some element of truth about reality. They don't get the full picture, and so they and because they're so new, they've not yet had this sort of mimetic selection for traits that are actually stably good for human psychology, because you come up with a new ideology, there's no guarantee that that's going to be good for human beings and good for our psychology and good for our flourishing. And so you have these new ideologies that are experiments at new religions, and they probably get some of the things that are important for a religion but don't get all of it right. And this is sort of model of how what ideologies are basically. Then what I want to say about the wokes are correct that things are unjust, but that has to be sort of balanced out with sometimes things are okay, sometimes things are justified. Not all you should be skeptical of power, but then you should also say that sometimes power is justified.
And even the greatest, our greatest challenge will come
sort of the partialness of their ideology. And then the last thing I want to say is there's this essay by Scott Alexander on Nietzsche. On slave versus master morality, that I think that if you haven't read it,
in many ways,
I think you'd find it really enlightening on the things you're saying about existence being good.
In many ways,
I mean, basically the thing that I think is going on is that it's basically wokeness isn't a religion in so much as it's a form of nihilism. And the ways it's almost instead of positing that your life has meaning, it's almost a way that people sort of embrace just this despondency and this just utter contempt for reality. And basically a big thing that I think is characteristic of wokeness is they don't actually this is the thing that I think is the most distinctive thing that I notice, is the thing that they find gratifying is to point out all the flaws and the defects. That's what they're looking for. They want to be angry and they want to be contemptuous and they want to confront people. What they don't want, it would almost be bad for them. They have a psychological investment in things staying bad, because if things ever became better or good, or problems were ever solved, then this would sort of deprive them of this resource that is feeding into their ability to complain all the time, basically, and to be super upset and resentful and to feel righteous victims. Where a thing basically they're not pragmatists at all. They're not actually looking for solutions. They're in fact trying to create framings of problems so as to make them unsolvable and so as to create catch-22s where no matter what you're doing, if you like black people, oh well, you're philic, you're fetishizing them, you're culturally appropriating, that's inappropriate. If you hate black people, oh well, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a terrible person. So basically, no matter what you do, you're always existing in some kind of socially unacceptable identity. They're not looking to respect yourself, you're looking to hate yourself, you're looking to find all these ways in which you're deficient and defective and you can self-flagellate. And the thing that's sort of interesting about it is it's almost like taking all the things that people needed, which is like, I need to feel self-respect. I need to have hope. I need to have like concrete goals and a belief that these are going to happen. I need to like ignore and minimize the extent to which things are bad, or the extent to which like, you know, suffering and injustice is inevitable. Like, you just have this like just world bias. Like, take that, which is perfectly natural, and then just invert all of that. And then you wind up with this sort of like very nihilistic ideology.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying there. Though I will say that like self-righteousness is like a very popular theme throughout human history. If people can find a way to feel self-righteous, they will do it because it's very satisfying to feel that you've pointed out the injustice of others, because it makes you feel morally superior. That just feels really good. And I think that explains some of this behavior. But I think there is this sort of like interesting thing that you're pointing to that I think is very real. But
well,
maybe we should...
that's the thing that's interesting too about it, is like looking at examples of people that I think are self-righteous and noticing the difference in the way that, in what seem to be the underlying motivations for them, where like for them, what they're looking to do is to feel superior. That's the feeling that I get for typical, normal, historical self-righteousness, you know? Like, they're trying to feel that they themselves are special. But the thing that's interesting about wokes, like the white woke class, is they're almost doing it for the opposite reason, you know? Like, they're looking for ways in which they can think of themselves as inferior.
I don't think that's a good model of it, because I think that the liberals, are not feeling as, they don't have a racial consciousness as white people. What's going on with the white liberals is they are able to feel superior to white conservatives by saying that they're the not racist ones. So they're not actually feeling inferior. When they say white people are bad,
fucking slaves.
I agree.
They're not talking about themselves as white people.
Do that, right?
And it's actually really funny that like there's certain blogs like stuff that's like calling white people out for like white liberals out for their social mores and sort of like labeling them as white. And they get uncomfortable when you're sort of noticing that like white liberals have social skills and they are white because they don't think of themselves as white people. And they,
I mean, I agree with you that like basically like, but the thing they're trying to do is think of them